felt beyond words. From Cabo to wine country, no one connects you to the Pacific Coast like Princess. Princess Cruises. Book now.
Good afternoon from Watkins, Glen, for another round of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Team Racing Series in 2026. It's been a few months since we were on the bumps of Sebring in the springtime. Now we get to the summer and Watkins, Glen for round number 3 of our championship. 5 races of 3 hours in length each, spread across the course of 2026 for these 963 Porsches and, of course, the standard GT3s as well. Welcome along to RaceSpotTV. I'm Ewan O'Leary alongside Jeremy Scott in the commentary box here today with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras of this RaceSpotTV broadcast here today. And as I say, it is round 3 of our season, our 5-race calendar. Started all the way back on the 4th of January on the high banks of Daytona. That was preceding the 24-hour, I suppose, back then. Preceding the 12-hour of Sebring, we had that race on March 15th as well, right in the middle of the normal standard sim racing series here at the PCA. Here in the summer, we're at Watkins Glen and we're going to Road America in 5 weeks' time as well as Road Atlanta to end our season. Once the regular racing on Wednesday and Thursdays is back underway, by the way, later on this year. This is the format. It's not too complicated. We've just finished practice. Qualifying is just underway, rather. Half past midday Eastern time. Then there'll be a little bit of a warm-up session before the race begins at should be just after 1:45 in the afternoon here today. We've had already, as I say, 2 rounds of this championship with these Porsche 963 and Porsche 911 GT3Rs. We are split this season, though, not only in those classes, but in the normal sim racing series classes, so Pro, Club, Sport and Challenge class. And we can show you the championship standings from all of those classes before we get properly underway. First of all, with the 963 standings across the 4 categories. Only one GTP Pro team, Cat 5 Racing GTP. In Club, there's a battle between Can-Am Racing and Last 10th Foundry, and the gap at the moment is 66 points. Backmarker Motorsports are leading the way in the Sport class. They're battling at Max Snell 1, and they're leading by 64 points as well. And Last 10th Lovebirds are the only ones in the GTP Challenge class. There are big fights, though, in all of the GT3 categories. And in the pros, it is Solpec Precision Racing who are leading the way by nearly 100 points already in front of Imperial Motorsports and Matrix Black. Gone Broke Racing are leading the club standings, the by far closest here and most interesting, leading by only 17 points in front of R Speed Black and Stallions RR. Motorsports leading the inventive team name. They're leading the sport class ahead of Chroma Motorsports White by 80 points and Max Schnell Zwei as well. Then the final of classes, Chroma Motorsports Black leading the challenge class in front of Alder Creek Performance Racing, rounding out the field there. They were only at 1 of the 2 rounds so far, hence the discrepancy in their points. Good to have you alongside, Jeremy, for today's race. Another 3-hour affair here, this time at Watkins Glen. In the week preceding, the iRacing 6 hours of the Glen, which I guess some of these teams might be competing in, either the GTP or the GT3 class, potentially next week. And so not only is it good preparation for that, it's also the halfway mark of our season here, the real midway point in our season, and time to get this season back up and running again after 3 months away from the Team Racing Series.
Yeah, great to be here, Ewan. And of course, this also kind of coincides with the IMSA Endurance Championship, so kind of explains the long breaks. But either way, yeah, I think a lot of teams will probably be setting up for this next week's 6 hours at the Glen for iRacing. And of course, what's interesting too is the way this race is set up. It's set up for obviously a 3-hour race. Well, Watkins Glen, that endurance race is 6 hours. So how do you get that down? well, the time is going to be elapsed twice as fast. So it'll give them a nice testing ground to figure out what they need to set up for the race and how to get it changed, but they'll have less pit stops to do it. Either way, it's going to be an interesting battle and affair. We only have a handful of GTPs, but a lot of GT3s.
Absolutely, and they are so often in the team racing series the absolute entertainment of this championship. But we do see good racing in the GTPs as well. Follow Charlie Boyer here, who's currently 8 tenths away from that current pole time that Chad Henson has got down at the moment for the PCA sim racing team, number 21. Haven't seen them at a round so far. Good to see them out front at the moment, as Charlie Boyer comes through the final turns now, coming up towards the end of the lap here. Final couple of turns, and what a couple of turns this is in these GTPs as well. Watkins Glen, I always find that one of those circuits where you really want a high downforce car, like you see in this Porsche 963, because it is wonderful to drive, though, not only those last 2 turns, but the whole way around here, really, with a downforce car like this.
Well, and you got to stop and figure, too, you don't have that many long straightaways. Yes, there's plenty of opportunities to pass, but a lot of those are part and parcel to the long, sweeping turns that you see here. As you see, Nikki Chan right now, second in the GT3R class, also in the Pro class, 0.078 seconds behind Chris Pies in the Imperial Motorsports number 453. Let's see what Chan can do across the line. Does he go faster? 45.203, and indeed, that's going to set Chan up for the overall pole. But Robbie Prescott goes up to the top of the 45.002. So already a great challenge here in the GT3R class.
Well, you said it at the start of the day. That is where the entertainment, it looks like, is going to be in terms of a close race through the field. The GT3 class so far, providing that. And it's a good chance in the team racing series as well to see drivers of different classes starting to race against one another. We don't really get to see this elsewhere, really, but we enjoy on Wednesdays and Thursdays at the start and at the end of each year the PCA sim racing series, the normal series, as it were. And, you know, it is very much set in the classes, isn't it? Very much set in the races, but the different drivers can battle amongst themselves from different classes in this series here, and especially there's a bit of a mix between pro and club class drivers. We're seeing that early on, especially towards the front. But as I say, yeah, we don't often get to see this, so it's good to see them mixing just a little bit.
Yeah, it's great to see that mix in and of itself. Chris Pies, your early top fastest driver, I should say, in the GT3 class coming out of the boot. But yeah, the mixing is what I really like. Now, of course, it reminds me of the old Grand Am Rolex series, but you know, here's the thing, you've got a spec prototype, spec car, but a lot of very fast drivers in and of themselves. If you remember last time out at Sebring, and it was a long time ago, and sometimes I forget what the heck happened. And we saw how good that Solpec was to come in, and they didn't dominate. We know how good Solpec can be. They had to fight for every inch. So yeah, you think, okay, this is just a PCA event. It's not just a PCA event. It's a PCA event that has some pretty fast competitors in them.
That's Ryan LeMay completing his laps there. The Cat 5 Racing GTP team are finished for this session. They're obviously the points leaders in GTP Pro. They've been the only ones here for this season so far. It's Ken Eskridge, one of the challenge teams, and the only challenge team indeed here today. Again, these 5 GTPs mixing once again. See if Eskridge has to get representative time on the board here. 7 seconds off the pace is a little bit unfair, I think. He's coming through the final turn now and up towards the line. And this is not going to be near the other times, but it is going to be faster than what he's managed before. So there you go, within 4 seconds at least of the pole that time around. And now back to the GT3s again. Well, it looks like Soul Precision Racing have taken the pole. And qualifying in this series does garner you points. 35 for pole, for example. Right the way down. Well, everybody in this server anyway is going to be getting some form of points just for qualifying here in a sort of IMSA-style point system here. It means that the qualifying position matters for points just just as well as the race positions do as well. But see, the race positions, there's a lot more points available. So still worth keeping an eye on this for points wise, but it's the race where obviously the real points are delivered, and 350 for the win as opposed to the 35 for pole.
Yeah, it helps guys like us to be able to go, oh, okay, well, it's 35 points for qualifying. You multiply that by 10 for the race points, so that makes adding things on the fly just a little bit easier. As you see, Peter Coomer in the number 05 Gone Broke Racing right now, 10th overall in the GT3 R class, and he's going to call it a session as we are just about ready to wrap up. 981 of Dave Jones and the Grello paint scheme there. I think everybody is done and dusted for this qualifying session.
Looks like it. And we'll very shortly have a look at the starting grids all the way through to see where everybody is on this grid. As we said, loads more GT3s than GTPs, as is the case in the Sim Racing Series normally. But still that multi-class traffic element over the course of these 3-hour races. And it's going to be an element to this race here today just as much. Before then, there's a bit of a warm-up session of 5 minutes for everybody to get used to having multi-class traffic around once again. And it is one of the most challenging racetracks to go to as far as multi-class traffic is concerned. I would argue that out of the 5 tracks on this schedule, probably the most difficult in terms of multi-class traffic. But it's a recognised circuit for this kind of thing. The 6 hours of the Glen's been going on for ages, so it's not unexpected to these drivers, but no less still difficult.
It really is. And of course, that's in 6 hours. It seems like, maybe a 10 or 12 hour race anywhere else because of how tight the confines are. And of course, it's like most endurance races. Over the years, it's turned into more of a sprint format, but especially here, with it being 6 hours, you have 2 drivers. Sometimes, in other series, you're lucky to have 3, but here you have 2. So it's kind of a sprint-ish format.
Yes, I quite like that as an idea, sprint-ish format. I'm just looking through the history of this race as a 6-hour event. Has pretty much gone every year since 1956, with a few interruptions, including 2020 for obvious reasons, and 82 and 83 as well. But there you go. This is the onboard of a pole lap here, and last 10th Foundry it is who've taken it through turn 1 there, making sure they don't get an off track out wide through turn 1, which is a little bit more of an ordeal than it used to be. And then the run up the hill here for the first time through the bus stop chicane. And this is the part of the racetrack here from here on that I think this racetrack is just magnificent in a high downforce car like this one.
It really is, because you can really commit yourself through the bus stop and then set yourself up for a good run into the boot. As you hear, there's not much throttle loss there, but now you start to really hammer on the brakes, and the car wants to step out there going into the boot as you're headed over to the toe for the first time. That's where things are fun, because you're going uphill and basically a little off camber too.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very difficult, but the most difficult, to my mind, of the off-camber turns is still to come. Next one, though, is turn 8, where it's not off-camber. It is no less difficult. Decent overtaking chance, decent braking zone. Can't run quite as wide as he used to be able to there, making sure you stay within the track limits there just about. But this is the most difficult off-camber corner for me. Just constantly going away and away and away from the apex there at turn 9 before you get back onto the sort of short loop, if you like, we can call it that. And then through the final couple of turns, this is a wonderful couple of corners in a 963. And then up towards the line, getting as close to that wall as possible. That was pretty hard. That was pretty hard pushing there from the last 10th Foundry 010 car. Will Wolf is out there in warm-up right now. I'm not sure whether it was him who set that pole lap there, but that was quite committed. And normally in pole laps you do see sort of almost a mechanical, a robotic look to it in terms of, no corrections made anywhere or whatever. That was a bit of a lively pole lap, I'll say, there for indeed it was Will Wolf. A 134.3 from him, and he's taken the pole today in front of Chad Henson, who's alongside David Boyer for Carnarvon Racing, then third of Ryan LeMay and Ken Eskridge, the 5 of our GTPs here for this race. In GT3 there's a much bigger grid. Robbie Prescott taking the pole for Seoul Pepsi Racing in front of Ziping Wang. row 2 is Chris Pies and Julian Jones to round up those first 2 rows, with Jake Garbino, the first of the club class teams, starting from 5th. Justin St John will be in 6th place, apparently a challenge team from it's quite high up though. 7th and 8th for Jeremy Hall and Ned Eisenring, who was the first driver over a second off pole. Mike Patterson and Peter Kurmo round out the top 10, with Joe Sinclair 11th and Sheldon Zaharchuk rounding off row 6 as the sport class pole sitter. Then it's Anthony James, Rex Jariwala and Adam Gerling, with Dave Jones, the other of the challenge drivers, along with Tim Taplin, who will start from the back there. 17 GT3s in this race here today, and I think it's going to be a very lively race back there. And the fact there's so many of them and they're outnumbering the 963s so much means that the prototype drivers are going to have quite an ordeal through traffic on the first occasion, certainly.
Yeah, first time through is going to be quite interesting for some of these drivers. But the good news is for the GT3s, Ewan, is they only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 GTPs they have to worry about. So that's good news for them. But for the GTPs, yeah, they've got a whole lot of GT3s they got to get through. So 6 in one half dozen the other.
Depends in which class you're in. As the warm-up session draws to a close, and the gridding will shortly get on. Having a look at those temperatures, by the way, it's getting hot. 44 degrees Celsius is 112 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason why for this, by the way, is because in this series they're all 3-hour races. However, the time acceleration is different depending on what circuit we're at. All of them, apart from Sebring, start at midday. Sebring started at 10 in the morning, so it finished at 10 at night as well, finished in the darkness. Today we're going to be running 6 hours of time in the simulator, but we are going to be running only 3 hours in the race. So we've got that time multiplier on. That means the temperature is going to dip throughout the day, but to begin with, that's relatively warm.
Yeah, it really is for this time of year. Of course, you know, the sun beating down on the racetrack. That doesn't help, of course, in the northeast of Finger Lakes region. It is kind of the early part of the summer, so that's going to make things just a little bit more interesting. And, of course, like we mentioned, the way the time acceleration is, it really will speed things up, especially with the tires. So that's something we're going to have to watch out for.
There they are gridded up on the way down towards turn 8. That is the heel of the boot. And at about 10 to 1 Eastern time, or 10 to 10 in the morning Pacific time, we'll be ready to go racing in the 2026 Team Racing Series after a 3-month hiatus. The 3 hours here at Watkins Glen, and a bit of a mixed up grid as far as the 963s are concerned as well. So it's going to be an exciting run down towards turn 1, and then that very dangerous run over the top of the hill through turns 2, 3 and 4. Always a point of nervousness for the field as well.
Ewan, real quick, no Rex Jariwala on the grid. The Stallions are number 7. Looks like it's not presented itself on the grid, so might be taking a pit lane start. We'll have to follow up on that. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these cars make their way around. Of course, we got 3 hours of racing, so no use getting too argy-bargy through up through the S's.
Yeah, might have to be a pit lane start back there. Hopefully, Rex Jariwala can at least get onto the starts, even if it is just from the pit lane. Here we go then. After 3 months off, the Porsche Club of America Team Racing Series returns in 2026 from New York State. It is time for 3 hours at Watkins Glen as Will Wolf brings them to the green. The green flag waves and we're underway for 180 minutes, and it's a good start on the outside from Chad Henson as he tries to challenge down in towards turn number 1. Will Wolf holds the inside nicely though, and he breaks a bit deep. Cold tyres, and he goes straight on pretty much. Henson swoops through on the inside and leads up the hill for the first time.
Fantastic start by the GTBs. GT3's looking pretty good as well, as Robbie Prescott, your leader there through the S's. Couple of side-by-side passes up there near the back, but so far everybody doing their best to avoid that blue Armco at the back, and so far so good as we're starting to straighten out single file as GTPs make their way through the bus stop.
That's the fascinating part of this circuit for the GTPs, where they suddenly really come into their own, whereas the GT3s are just hanging on through there. They're over the curve through the bus stop and then into the long right-hander at the outer loop there. It's still Robbie Prescott leading in front of Chris Pies, who's under pressure from Jake Garbino, by the way. Another great start from Jake Garbino because he's qualified well in that club class Porsche, and he's now up to the top 3 in GT3 as well.
And no surprise to see Garbino looking pretty good so far. That's a name I feel like we've been saying more and more these past couple of seasons as the 13 trying to work his way around these two pro drivers. He is in the club class, so that's something to think about as well, as they're second in class, Gone Broke Racing a little bit further back. So it's a tight, as we mentioned in the open, it's a tight championship battle. Yes, it's still early in the race, early in the season, think about that, but the more points you can garner throughout this early part of the season, the better off you're going to be, as you see Garbino trying to do what he can to close in on Chris Pies for that second overall spot.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on where everybody is in terms of the championship a little bit later. We'll do some maths when it all settles down. But at the end of lap number 1, Salt Pepper Precision Racing continue to lead the field around in front of Imperial Motorsport, and then R-Speed Black. It's close for the lead in GTP as well here. PCA Sim Racing lead the way. Then Last 10th Foundry, then Cat 5 Racing GTP. And that's 3 in a line effectively in the draft of one another. That's not going to remain the case all throughout this race when they come into traffic a little bit later on in this race. However, for now, it is nose to tail for those front 3.
Now we see Rashkashari Walla back on the timing charts, and indeed he is in pit road. So one has to wonder, there's some connection issues with the Stallion RR drivers. We're watching this battle for third place. That's an out-of-class battle. It's GT3R Pro versus GT3R Club. Both Imperial Motorsports second place in their class. Chris Pies doing what he can to not only keep Jake Garbino behind him, but he's got to catch up to Robbie Prescott. Those Solpec boys, they are oh so fast. And look who else is coming into the fray. It's Ziping Wang, who was really fast in his qualifying effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Under a lot of pressure though at the moment is Pies as they come up towards the right-hander at turn 8, the heel of the boot. They are getting away from the rest as well though, so it's not all bad at the moment for these front guys in GT3. Field spreads out a little bit further down. As you say, Rex Durwala has been having some connection problems. He's seemingly back in the race now in that number 7. But severely delayed there down at the back end of the field for Stallions RR, and that is a club class team, much like the one that is currently in 3rd overall. R-Speed Black and Jake Garbino to the end of lap number 2. They've settled in here quite nicely, and out front Robbie Prescott is trying to break away from the rest of the field here. Just break that draft here at Watkins Glen, which could be quite crucial, if maybe more symbolic than actually practically going to make a difference.
I mean, it'll make a little bit of difference going into a couple of long straightaways like we mentioned, but it's not going to make that much of a difference because either way, like we said at the beginning, these are a lot of very fast-flowing corners, you know, through the S's, into the outer loop, and around basically the boot as well. So lots of opportunities to make some sort of passing with, you know, in spite of not having those long straightaways like you would see at Sebring, at Daytona, at Road America later on in the season. So these 3 hours, it's going to be a challenge for these drivers to try and keep others behind. You're on board with the 987 of Ryan LeMay right now in the GTP Pro class. 3rd overall, however, trying to close in on Henson and Wolf. And you basically put a blanket over these 3, 1 second separate them. But with the format of this race, you want to keep these drivers in tow, because if they get away you and now you don't have 2 opportunities to go in front, you just have 1, and that's pit strategy.
Indeed. It's a remarkable start to the race though for these 3, isn't it? The way they're staying this close together. There you can see the positions changing amongst them. PCA Sim Racing getting ahead of Last 10th Foundry off the start here, and Cat 5 Racing getting past Kynarm Racing to go with them here into the bus stop chicane again. They've, you know, got tyres up to temperature here. They're settling into a stint. It's like settling into a stint where the 3 of them, Henson, Wolf and LeMay, are all very, very evenly matched. And, you know, knowing what we do about the series racing we see here with most recent season, Series 15 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, I would say that it's reasonable that Henson and Wolf will be on a similar speed. I think that lines up. I don't know if I've seen too much of Ryan LeMay though, but this is a great showing from him that he can stay with these 2 so early on in this race, I think.
Yeah, and of course, that's what you need to do. You need to stay within your competitors. Got some side-by-side action back here. That is for 8th place overall. Justin St. John getting around Joe Sinclair for that position, and knocking on the doors Peter Coomer and the number 05 Gone Broke Racing in the club class as he tries to close in. And that's actually not going to be an in-class battle because he's in the club. The other two ahead of him are in the pro class. But still, a lot of great battling here all throughout the field. And I think if you're Ryan LeMay, yeah, you're not closing in on the other drivers, but you're still setting lap times good enough to stay within striking distance. Should Henson or Wolf drop a wheel, which in spite of all of the runoff here, Ewan, that's pretty easy to do in some corners, especially the bus stop.
That's a good run there for the 010 out front for the lead. By the way, Wolf has got a good run this time around on Chad Henson. Coming up towards the bus stop, he's going to go for the lead here on the bottom of your screen. The overall lead almost changing. Wolf was looking down the inside there for the pass, but couldn't get it done. It's narrow into there, and as far as your racing line is concerned, there's not much scope to run side by side, and that just seemed to put off Wolf there from actually going through with that brave move.
And now Wolf is actually backed up into Ryan LeMay, so that's one thing that LeMay really wanted is to close in on these two. And of course, he's also really got to get going as well because Charlie Boyer, running in the Kiernan Racing Blau, number 93 in the club class, he's closed in. So now your 3-car battle for the lead has turned into a 4-car battle for the lead. Bottom part of your screen, you see Jake Urbino once again closing in on Chris Pies coming out of the S's. Prescott, he's long gone, done and dusted at this point. Let's see if Garbino does anything here. A little bit too far away, but here's what I find interesting, you, and now we're getting to the point in the race, and I thought we'd see it later, where now you're starting to see the GT3Rs just run in pairs. So you've got 2nd and 3rd in a pair, 4th and 5th, 6th and 7th, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I thought it would be a bit later as well, but it's the way that this has been stretched out straight away by Bobby Prescott. I mean, he's normally at the start of the race, as you say, it doesn't split off to pairs like this quite so soon, but this is a legacy of the leader here, effectively just pulling on the elastic of this front group, and it's split apart here, and everybody else is just scrambling around to save themselves here at the moment further down. Look again from Garbino here as he's in behind Chris Pies, up towards turn 9. He can't seem to get past, or maybe he won't get past for the moment. Maybe he's choosing not to. A fight here for second is only going to give Prescott an even bigger lead when he's able to create his own rather big lead at the front at the moment. So I think he's less than encouraged to actually make something happen right now.
And then just pair up, try and catch up to Prescott as best you can, or you wait for the last 10th pair to close in on you, and then you take that because 16 wheels are definitely better than 4. You're able to close in on Prescott and then have basically a very good race for the lead. As you see, there's the first pair and the second pair. On paper, it doesn't look like they're closing, but if you take a look at it visually, they might start to close in spite of the last 10th pair of Wang and Jones deciding to split up just a little bit coming out of turn 1.
So another chance in towards the bus stop here. Garbino stays where he is once again here through 10 minutes of this race tonight at Watkins Glen. The 3rd round in the 2026 Team Racing Series at the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Championship. We've had 3 months away from this series, as you say, following the IMSA Endurance Series, as it were. So generally does tend to be some big breaks off this year. We're visiting the 5 racetracks where there's 6-hour or longer races being held in the real world. Here, though, 3-hour races, all it is, although I say that the time is elapsed by 2 times what it is normally. So it will get a lot cooler a lot earlier. There's a look again. A look to the inside from Will Wolf, who's continually putting the pressure on Chad Henson. That might have been his last chance into the bus stop before they hit traffic here in the next few moments. It's not too far away now.
Closing ever so slightly, so I'm wondering if Wolf and LeMay are sitting there thinking, well, you know what, let's wait and see how the lap down traffic ends up, because you'll have to encounter Whiskey Wheels, Alder Creek, Chroma Motorsports White. Those will usually be the first 3 that these GTPs will come across. So I'm curious to see if that's the case, with Wolf, LeMay, and Boyer. Let Henson get out there. Let him burn up his tires early, so he'll have to pit earlier than everybody else. But, using the lap down strategy really not too bad. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ewan, but we normally see lapping around, what, 20, 30 minutes into these races?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it earlier here. It depends really how big the track is and how big the difference is in terms of the speed of the classes. So because this is a bit of a higher downforce circuit, you tend to see a little bit quicker closing. So I'd say within 10 laps or so we're going to see some lapping here happening. And we've just started lap 8 now, so we're really not very far away from that in the next few moments. But last time round, these guys were all in the 36s. The GT3s, even the best of them, were in the 45s. So for most of them in the 46s or slower. So yeah, really depends on what kind of circuit we're at. But because you want such a high downforce car around here, the GTPs, I think, get round here much easier than the GT3s do.
Yeah, and that's just, just the case with even a prototype at a GT class either way, because the GTPs are purpose built for this. GT3s normally they're basically roll off the shop, throw a cage in them, and boom, ready to go. Actually watching, now they are starting to close in. We got almost 3 wide for position. That's for 6th place with Stallion's Imperial Matrix Black, so already getting spicy through the boot.
Well, that was quite a moment to cut to there. Battle for 6th place in GT3. All sorts of different classes involved, and another move through the penultimate turn. Well, that was a high-risk move because it's high speed back here at the very final part of the lap. Jeremy Hall pushed out wide by Ed Eisenring on the aggressive there, and he loses 2 places as a result. Justin St. John was able to come 3 as well as a result of this. Matrix have 2 teams involved here, so might be able to do something working together. You can see the 2 similar liveries involved here, but the 212 is not quite able to say with the 55 here at the moment. Eisenring's now going to get clear. Side by side over the top of the hill. Got to be careful here. Got to be very careful. And there's contact over the top of the hill. It's one of the narrowest parts of this racetrack. And they've come to blows. They've come to blows. The 212 is involved in it. And they've got damage, as will all 3 of them involved in that. Side by side over the top of the hill only works if you're very, very careful over the top, and I'm afraid those 3 teams weren't quite careful enough, and they've come to blows at turn 3.
Meanwhile, Ryan LeMay is into the pits. He decides that he's going to pit early and get away from this GT3 traffic. And thankfully, they all happened ahead of our GTP leaders as they're trying to slice and dice their way through. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Look at this. Now you have a battle for the lead between Henson and Wolf. They work their way into the boot. Henson, your new leader. And so will Wolf have the lead for just the time being. And now it's a matter of do you make the pass, poke your nose in there, or do you lose the lead? It's so tough to make that decision, especially this early on in the race.
Well, he just made the wrong decision behind a bit of traffic there through the outer loop, did Henson, and he did lose the lead briefly, but he's held back Will Wolf more generally now, and he's making the right decisions now as he gets caught up behind the 210 there towards turn 9. But as long as he protects the inside line there, he should stay in front, and he does. A flash of the lights from Wolf as he follows through. And Charlie Boyett is the next one involved there, because as you mentioned, Ryan LeMay did come into pit lane. 38.5 seconds is pretty much a full stop. I wonder whether he forgot to take out some fuel, put in more fuel after qualifying, and he's had to come in early because that's a very, very long stop. But meantime, the guys who are left are fighting anyway. Boyer to the outside that time on Wolf, and now he cuts back to the inside off of turn 1. Now they're side by side over the top of the hill, and you've got to be careful through here, as we've just seen. Wolf this time though gets away with it with Boyer, and they stay as they are. This race has sprung into life in the traffic for the first time.
Yeah, and I think that Boyer decided discretion was the better part of valor. Knew it was so early in this race that you don't want to have anything to really mess you up right there, which, by the way, we got a black flag on Jeremy Hall, so he'll have to come in and serve that penalty. And here's exactly why, as he takes a little wiggle going through the midpoint of the S's. And I think the live race stewards decided that, you know what, Hall was at fault there for not giving enough room there for that incident. And back to what we're talking about with the Ryan LeMay issue, 963s have 100% fuel, and a typical stint is about 40 minutes for those cars. So I have a feeling that you're right, that there wasn't just enough fuel in that Ryan LeMay car.
Yeah, I think right from the very beginning. I think Yeah, I think that's probably the right call from Race Control. If you look at the line that he was on there, on the inside line there, Jeremy Hall, he was not going to, make that corner and give enough space, well, as we saw, to the cars on the outside. And that, when you're on the inside like that, especially when you've got such responsibility at that stage in the race, that is why penalty has been dished out, and I can't say you can have too many complaints about that one. Battle for the lead again overall. What a breathless race so far we've seen in the first 20 minutes here. Will Wolf on the back of Chad Henson here for the lead as they go over the top of the hill. That's Ed Eisenring, by the way, who'll be very pleased that he got past and clear of that group before it all descended into the incident that we just saw. But there's Eisenring being put a lap down, and it doesn't present an opportunity to Wolf this time around to get past Chad Henson, but still close for the lead with even with the three we have left, even if Ryan LeMay is no longer here. As you say, no restriction on fuel for these 963s here in this series. There is for the GT3s, but yeah, that should easily be getting them to even 45, 50 minutes, I'd say, around Watkins Glen. So it is a mistake, I think, or maybe something else going on there for Cat 5 Racing.
One has to wonder as well if it was some kind of reverse strategy. Get out there, get away from the GT3 traffic, and make yourself known. Either way, we'll see how it plays out. We've still got plenty of time left. Here's what I find is interesting, though, is the way that the lap traffic has worked. Will Wolf has gone between Chad Henson and Charlie Boyer in trying to save a battle for position, as you see them along the inside of Julian Jones, Yiping Wang, the next car that will be put one lap down by these prototypes. And you see all sorts of slicing and dicing. Got to give Chad Henson some credit there, because he thought he could use one of those last 10th Porsches to give him some sort of a block there. Wasn't able to work, and now you see Will Wolf trying to close in once again on the leader. They're almost side by side, but Wolf backs off just a little bit going into turn number 1, as they've got a couple more. Those are the two cars we saw battling for second place earlier on in this race for the GT3 second place overall. Oh, that was a beautiful pass there by Henson, as he puts lots of space between he and Wolf for the time being. And now the battle for second place heats up as Boyer goes side by side with Henson, or Wolf, I should say, move Boyer to second and Wolf back to third.
Just taking advantage of that moment through traffic. Charlie Boyer moves up to second in the GTP class, and perhaps more importantly, to first place in the club category for GTP. That Kainan racing car has won on both occasions and taken pole on both occasions this season so far. Now, it hasn't taken pole for this round, so there's the first change of this season, really, between these two teams. They have now, though, taken the race lead, and they'd much rather the 30 points, the versus second, that they're going to get for winning, rather than, I suspect, the 3 points advantage that the last 10th Foundry team will have got for pole. But every little bit of gain is going to help them for this point in the season. But yeah, that's a nice move from Boyer. That's exactly what you got to do through traffic, really. Try and take advantage of what's going on in front. And Wolf has just had a bad moment through this final bit of traffic. They've finished passing the guys there, because that is Robbie Prescott. And through that final bit of traffic there, Wolf just wasn't quite having the best look, and Boyer's taking advantage of it.
I don't know if you saw it as well coming out of the boot. Jake Urbino darn near side slacked that wall coming drivers right back onto the short circuit. He has lost twice the amount of pace that he did. He was running about a 10th of a second, now 6/10 of a second behind Chris Pies for second overall in GT3. But look, Pies is in pro. You've got Gerbino and RSP Black in club. So really, yeah, it's more pride at this point, but at the same time, you want to get ahead, because you take a look, the next club driver, if I'm counting right, is going to be Peter Coomer right now in 8th in the GT3 R class. It's he's, if I'm trying to do my math, about 20 seconds behind.
Well, 20 minutes into this 3-hour race from Watkins Glen this afternoon. What a start we've had, by the way, as the Team Racing Series returns. This has been absolutely fantastic stuff so far. In GT3, Salt Precision Racing leading by 3.5 seconds. Then it's Chris Pies. Jake Garbino leading in the club class. Then zipping Wang. Julian Jones next, another pro, of Ed Eisenring, who is in 6th position at the moment. Justin St. John, Peter Kuma, Anthony James, Joe Sinclair, the top 10 in GT3 at the moment. Here is just to the bottom end of that top 10 right now. Joe Sinclair behind Anthony James. Club class driver ahead of a pro class driver as things stand. These two down towards the right-hander, the heel of the boot. Turn 8. Bit of damage it even looks like on Sinclair's car. He must have gotten caught up with that incident over the top of the hill that unfolded right in front of him there a couple of laps ago.
And of course, something to think about too, in this 3-hour race, you only have one fast repair, so use it wisely. If you're not affected too much by it, you don't need to really think about touching that, because things can go wrong very fast here at the Glen. You're on board on the bottom with Will Wolf trying to close in on Charlie Boyer. Again, the 93 Kiernan Racing Blau ahead of the 010 last 10th Foundry 963, making their way into the booth. The good news is they haven't lost Chad Henson too much yet, but the bad news is for Boyer and Wolf, that 21 is getting smaller and smaller every corner here around the circuit as you take a look at that battle for second place above us still for GT3 between Pies and Garbino.
Yeah, it's interesting how Henson was able to be kept in check so closely by Wolf early in this race, because now that Boyer is in second, that gap is extending for the overall lead here, and Wolf wants that second place back. He looks to the inside through turn 9, and he's going to get that door shut on him by Charlie Boyer, but that was a decent look, and it shows the urgency here that Wolf is driving with.
Yeah, but here's the thing, you're still pretty early into this race. I'm not sure I would push that hard for an extra position. I mean, yes, it is for the club lead, but either way, you don't want to tear up your equipment too soon and have to pit, 1 to 2 laps earlier than you really needed to, as they work their way up and around the S's through those uphill climb, and they're looking pretty good so far. But I guess I understand Will Wolf's urgency here, but I don't get the strategy behind it.
Well, it's not a huge lead still for Henson, which is the positive part for these guys. Still only a second and a half, but as it's flattening out here and there's no traffic around, it seemed to be going Henson's way just a little bit. Last time round he gained 0.08 of a second, which no is not much, but it is just padding his lead ever so slightly. Wolf seems to be a little bit stronger as well through this section right here, the boot. He was looking up the inside as they exited the boot, coming onto turn 9 last lap. Had a good run through turn 6 this lap to get pretty close and see what he does, if anything, into the hairpin. This time around he's not quite as close, but he's showing intent here. And 25 minutes into this race, they won't be a million, well, they'll certainly be halfway through their stint by now. So getting towards lower fuel runs now. And Wolf still showing that he's got the speed here to stay with Henson, but he needs to get back to second first.
How this all works out, there's your battle for GTP, and of course this is great battles for second place overall in class. But here's the thing, the one on the top means just a little bit more, because that's also the battle for the lead in each class. So it seems like Wolf's getting closer and closer. Let's see if he deploys anything here on the back straightaway, or if Boyer decides to take a little bit of a defensive approach into the bus stop. No, he's going to leave that door open as Wolf looks to the inside to decides better of it. Through the bus stop he comes. Of course, he's going to lose a lot of ground here. Now we take a look at what Garbino has for Pies down into that downhill braking zone in turn 1. About a car length separate those two. And you and I think that these guys are probably pretty content with seeing where they are. But here's the problem with both of those drivers, or both of those battles, I should say. The overall leader in class has already stepped away. You've got Henson 1.7 seconds ahead of this battle for second place in GTP, and Prescott has opened up a commanding almost 5 seconds to Chris Pies.
Yeah, it's getting larger, isn't it, as well, this gap at the front. I mean, it's not like Prescott is driver of the only pro team in the race or anything like that. It's very populated, the pro class, but he's just the fastest of them. Now, we're only in the first half an hour of this race, and these guys have already completed their minimum drive time now. They're getting that way with the fair share rules, but every single team in this race has to change driver at some point and satisfy a fair share rule between two of their drivers here today. So this is only one set of matchups, if you like. There's still a whole nother grid of drivers yet to come here today as Wolf looks down the inside there of Boyer. Oh, the Porsche in front there, the GT3 goes straight off the road there in seeing the two leading battlers coming towards him there. That might be a good idea. Might be overly cautious, but let's see what happens here towards the bus stop. Wolf in the slipstream again. Is there enough of a straight here for him to get alongside Boyer in time? There isn't. And still, he can't get past as they enter traffic now for the second time.
And this is how it's going to be, plan out your race accordingly. Once you get towards the GT3s, that's where you decide, okay, I'm going to make this pass here. Sit back there, save some fuel, save some energy, so you're not having to fight your way all throughout the field. Because yes, you got to stop and figure with these things being hypercars slash, hybrids. You're still saving energy, which is what we call the fuel and the electric power that goes into these cars each and every pit stop. Wolf's going to get closer and closer. Wait for that slip up on Boyer, which he thinks is going to happen anytime soon. But Boyer, we know how good he's slicing and dicing his way through traffic, because he almost made that pass on Wolf several times when they were lapping the first time around GT3 traffic.
To the final couple of corners again for the second and third place battle, and Henson negotiating traffic well this time. I mean, they're a little bit more spread out now, those GT3s, so picking them off one by one. Here comes Wolf again. He had a look towards the inside of turn one last lap. Can't do it again. And these GTPs, when they're so fast down this straight here, the back straight towards the bus stop chicane, makes it very difficult to use this longest draft opportunity here for Will Wolf up the hill.
Love the sound of those 963s as they work their way out of the S's, and there you go. Wolf once again closing in on Boyer, but Boyer back on the brakes through the bus stop, and it looks like that Boyer just gets that better exit, and that's how he's able to stave off as Ken Eskridge falls back a little bit. Because LeMay, he's moving his way up through the field, so move LeMay up to 4, still second in the pro class, but with that pit stop in hand, that might play into some sort of a good strategy for him in the early part of this race. We'll have to go back to that once we get closer to the end of the race. And now the battle's afoot as GT3s are all over the place. You see Whiskey Wheels and Alder Creek Performance Racing, the first two to get 2 laps down.
Down the inside for Boyer. And he's now only a second behind Henson. So not such good luck this time round for the PCA Sim Racing driver, but there's a whole load of free air up in front for them to negotiate now in terms of traffic. So that is a positive news for them. Either way, we're about half an hour through this opening race of the day. The opening race of the summer, if you like, in the PCA. This is Ken Eskridge slowing down here, by the way, just to let Ryan LeMay through. With half an hour done this afternoon, time to remind you once again that we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises continue as the PCA Sim Racing title sponsor throughout 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Trefin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website links on screen, that's pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. Well, great battling out here at Watkins Glen so far this afternoon, and finally Charlie Boyer looks to be under pressure. Perhaps the fiercest pressure he's felt so far since getting this second. There was a bit of contact there. I think Wolf got his braking wrong slightly for turn 8, and he barges Boyer just a little bit, shoulder to shoulder as it were, through the hairpin. They're still side by side through turn 9. The outside though for Wolf prevails. They lose a bit of time to the leader Henson, but finally Wolf has got himself through. And
that's sometimes the way turn 8 works, is you don't want to mess that up. And of course, That was interesting too. You saw Boyer have to let off. I think he went into that final quarter just a little bit too fast. And now that Wolff is really slicing his way through traffic, I've got to say, this is going to be quite interesting to see if Boyer can really get his bag all together and try once again. Oh, that was close as well. Try once again to close in on Wolff, but the way that Wolff is slicing through traffic, I think it's going to be easier said than done.
It's a bit tentative there on that occasion, Boyer, and that gap is gone. Wolff is into second definitively. But I think these next few moments are going to be very, very telling in terms of this leading fight here. Can Wolff actually close a gap that's sort of been created there by Chad Henson throughout that fight there? I mean, he's already gaining a little bit through traffic. We'll see what it is when they come through these kind of parts of the traffic and see when they're actually the other side of the traffic. But it's going to be a big test, I think, of Wolff to see if he can actually not only maintain a gap to Henson, which we've seen him do, but can he actually close one back into being a fight for the lead again here?
I mean, that's the question. It's a matter of trying to catch traffic at the right time, which we know that Wolff, he's closing in ever so slightly as he works his way through the final part of this of the lap down cars. As he's about 0.8 of a second behind Henson. But watching these. Watching this GT3 battle is absolutely fantastic, as still Imperial and R-Speed Black still second and third, but they've been at it for the past half hour or so to try and at least get some sort of semblance of track position, but at the same time, they're losing Solpak. Solpak's now 6.1 seconds ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, it's a remarkable drive so far from Robbie Prescott. He is motoring, and he is a long way in front of the field right now in GT3, and it doesn't seem really that Gabino thinks he can do anything about it, because he's not even made an attempt to try and pass Chris Price here. I do wonder how much for Gabino this is about just saving him a bit of fuel right now and just making absolutely sure you can make it to the 45-minute mark in this race, which might be a little bit difficult. We'll have to see where people are at. I think making 45 minutes should be fine. We'll see though just how or what rather happens when these pit stops are made. The first pit stops of surely 3 over the course of today in both categories.
Yeah, I think 3 is a good number right there. Peter Coomer is into the pits the second time that he has been in the pits, but the first time that he's actually making some sort of pit stop there. Actually, Jerry Wallace, it's first time for Coomer, as he is in and out of the pits, and I think that Jerry Wall is in the pits with some sort of damages. He's been in there for about 5 minutes. Looks like he's had to possibly take some sort of toes. You see Joe Sinclair closing in on Adam Gerling for position. That's overall in the battle for 11th. They still got that tight battle for second in GT3R. Kind of the accordion effect where they've lost touch a little bit, but they're starting to gain control of each other here right now.
Yeah, and by the way, on Jerry Waller, I think he's continuing to have trouble that has persisted right from the start of this race. So far is seemingly out of this one, certainly out of the running at the moment. Here comes Anthony James in pit lane for the Missile Motors team. 210 into pit lane and pulls to a stop right in front of the box. We'll see whether there's any driver changes at this stage. As I mentioned, fair share rules are in effect here, but the iRacing fair share rules really aren't very restrictive. So you could get out right now and be done for the day if you so wish.
Yeah, so that kind of is what we call here in the States the RJ Valentine rule. And if you've a long-time fan of sports car racing, you know what that rule entailed. If you remember, RJ Valentine would do 1, maybe 2 laps, come in, and Andy Lally, his normal co-driver, whoever his pro co-driver is, would run the rest of the race, and that would work in Grand Am up until the officials were like, you know, maybe we should change some things around.
I still think in IMSA there's some rules that they really should, on drive time, they really should, well, I say fix. I guess they don't think there's anything wrong with them. But the fact, for example, the fact at Long Beach you can do about 5 minutes and be done for the day, I don't know. I just don't like it. Anyway, Gabino's finally going to go for it here down the inside into second. And, oh, he does a good job at just about holding on to the racetrack there. But Pies lets him go. And based on how I know how Chris Pies drives, having watched him in the PCA and elsewhere for a while, I don't know if he's going to respond here, to be honest. He might just take the extra fuel save that he's going to experience here down towards the bus stop, although maybe not. He's going to pull to the outside. Get side by side in time for the bus stop, but he's going to have to back out from there. And meantime, coming on to them both is the battle for the lead. Wolf has been able to, from a standing start, catch back up to Chad Henson and put him under pressure once again.
It just goes to show how close that these battles are all throughout the field. Joe Sinclair into the pits right now, as you see Henson almost thought about a look there on Pies, but decides they're going to split the uprights heading into the toe. I cannot believe it. That could have been absolutely nasty as both GT3s get up to the front.
That was fantastic driving from all four involved through the middle of those GT3s. One went to the left, one went to the right. I think they were both trying with the aim to stay out of the way for those GTPs to come through. In the end, in their own weird way, that actually did work, but that's not in the textbook, certainly. Henson still in front of Wolf, and Pies able to regain his place over Gerbino. I thought he'd just let that go, and he'd let Gerbino keep second until the pit stops, but Chris Pies did want to get that second place back, and he's got it back.
Can you say vintage Watkins Glen? This race has had almost everything that we've come to expect, and we're not even 40 minutes into this race. All you have to do is laugh as Pies trying to close in, trying to hold on to that second place overall in the GT3 class.
Remarkable race so far. What we haven't had though in this race just yet is pit stops, and they're on their way very, very soon for the leaders. Here comes Gerbino in the slipstream of Pies. There's Prescott, by the way, that the overall leaders are just passing on the top of your screen right now, so they're in a little bit of clearer air, but the traffic coming in less defined chunks now, and actually just more sort of constantly through the course of the day. So this is where the proper endurance part of it comes in now, because, as I say, before it was sort of 2 or 3 laps of pure concentration and, you know, manic traffic. Now it's just sort of 1 or 2 per lap maybe, and that's where the sort of constant concentration and patience and pressure of traffic is going to come in. Now that it's just thinning out a little bit, you can see on the top of your screen Henson just getting a slightly bigger lead.
That's what we see. We see Henson losing ground during the lap down contests. Once he gets around all the GT3s, that's where things get a lot easier. Of course, you see Anthony James will be the next car to be put 1 lap down. James with a pit stop already, 33-second pit stop, so a little bit longer than what we have seen in some of these pit stops. But here's the thing too, no driver changes as of yet. Let's take a look up and down those who have pitted, as you're seeing the 21 of Chad Henson holding on to Will Wolf. Wolf was able to close in just a little bit off the corner, but once he gets up through the S's, I think that catch-up is going to be all for naught.
Indeed, 40 minutes about to be complete here at Watkins Glen. A fantastic start to this race here. The first quarter flying by for the 3 hours today. A proper fight for the race lead. And of course, we're yet to really think about how Ryan LeMay is going to actually filter into this. We know that he's made an extra stop, or a stop indeed. He's made it early. He's so far, as a result, nearly a minute down on the field. However, where is he going to mould into this once everybody pits again? It's not unreasonable to think that actually LeMay might be leading when these two actually come into pit lane because of the fights they've had. Now, because he's made such an early stop, and I think, as I said earlier, maybe didn't increase fuel from that pit from qualifying, which has given them a really early stop there. That might hamper them later on, but I think for now they could even end up in the lead here when these two come in.
It's quite possible, and I think that LeMay and Cat 5 Racing probably had 2 different strategies. 1, pit with everybody else, or 2, once you get up to those GT3 traffic, pit now, so that's less traffic you have to deal with a little bit later on, and you're not sliced and diced with the rest of the GTPs, I should say. That's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I I don't know. I think that might be one of the correct calls. You see down there, Gravino still closing in on Chris Pies, and it's only going to be a matter of time before we start to see these two pit together, or does one go off strategy from the other?
Let's see here. Interesting to see in both categories. 80% fuel restriction, as we've said, in the GT3R category. Normally you'd expect an hour, so 80% is what, going to probably decrease that by 12 minutes? Give you sort of just over 45. Now, to make this a 3-stop race, you need 4 stints of 45 minutes, so that should be fine. But see at the bottom of your screen right now, the GT3 leaders, at least those fighting for second place, making their way around the bus stop. I'd say they need to go on for maybe 2 more laps after this one to be fully safe on making a 3-stop race, but I don't think it should be a problem.
No, it shouldn't be too much of an issue, and of course with all the saving that you can do, it's going to make things just a little bit easier as they work their way around through the toe of the boot. Urbino, I think, has been pretty happy though to sit back here with Chris Pies and make some sort of difference, some sort of saving here as that number 13 R-Speed Black. Ironic. It's green, but yet we're still calling it a black team.
They're good at this, these teams, for that sort of thing. It's a long-time complaint of us commentators, but they don't seem to listen. Anyway, besides that moment of madness, I think, yeah, you're right, that Garbino has been willing to stay behind Pies. The moment of madness I'm referring to is when he actually managed to fashion an overtake ahead of that Imperial Motorsports car, and then Pies all of a sudden was super desperate to get back ahead and managed it soon after. So apart from that, it has been an agreement really between these two drivers to ride around as they are up the hill here now. He's got a good enough exit that time round to stay in front. Let's say 2 more laps required now, and they'll be absolutely comfortable on fuel. Same goes for the GTPs, although they're halfway around this lap already. Henson still in front of Wolf, and they're actually about to lap Ken Eskridge, by the way, the only other challenge at 963s in this race, understandably therefore at the back of the field, about to be lapped. So some GTP traffic also for the overall leaders.
And this is how it's going to be. It's going to be GTP every 10 or 15 minutes, catching up to the back of GT3 traffic, and it's going to be that way again once everybody decides to come in and pit. And now we got a nice battle for 5th in class, and this is between Ed Eisenring and Ziping Wang, the 20 and the 11, 011 I should say, and that's actually a battle for the pro class as well. So I believe if I'm looking right, that's going to be 3rd and 4th right now in that pro category.
Yeah, how to work out where everybody is in each category, isn't it? I mentioned earlier I was going to do some maths on where everybody's supposed to be in terms of points and whatever after qualifying and then facing forward into the race as well, but we'll have to maybe park that for a few more minutes as well, because pit stops are about to mess with that too. Robbie Prescott into the pit lane from the lead, and Garbino follows. Pies has been able to go on longer. Now, is that because he's been saving or anything, or is that just the way that this has fallen? But for these guys stopping here, they haven't made 45 minutes quite. A small concern early on in this race on strategy.
That's going to be quite interesting to see how that all plays out as you see those three just come right into the pits. Pies, though, that's what I mentioned earlier. Pies may have a good strategy in staying out an extra lap. Jones and Eisenring also doing their thing to stay out. So we'll see how this all plays out as you see the 919 of Robbie Prescott on the jacks drops down. So he'll have another stint, and Mike Patterson also coming into the pits.
Not an insignificant number of GT3s in already. 4 so far, only 4 have so far carried on. All the others have been delayed if they are carrying on. At 33 seconds in the bay for Robbie Prescott, so there's the few seconds taken off for the last 20% of the fuel tank, which they're not allowed to use, and indeed are prevented from doing so by iRacing, of course. Back back out onto the racetrack though for these leaders. We'll wait and see where, for example, Chris Pies is going to be versus Jake Gerbino. And so far, no driver change from what I can see. It is within the rules to stop now, and that will be the only driver swap for the race. But if you want to split it up evenly, then stopping at or changing at stop number 2 is definitely the best way to go.
It really is, but here's the only driver change I actually noted was last stop for Joe Sinclair. He got out, Mario Gonzalez got in, and that is the 212 Matrix Gold as Peter Coomer goes around Jones and Leon Snyman. So it looks like Snyman also hopping in for the Alder Creek number 14 with Tim Taplin tapping out.
Julian Jones able to carry on to lap 27, by the way, in GT3, but pretty much everybody else is in. Chris Pies leading them in, along with Ed Eisenring, who makes his stop as well. So yeah, wow, that's quite something for Julian Jones. Let's see what these guys at the front do. Henson versus Wolf continues. Do they now come into pit lane? Maybe. Looks like they're going to carry on. Yep, they do. So 47 minutes rather complete, and they're still going in towards turn 1. Still running nose to tail as well, these guys. Charlie Boyer's into pit lane though, and as I say, this is absolutely in the window for these GTPs, so unsurprising that they're in not long after the GT3s. Prescott comes through and gets out in front. Matt Quinn is going to get into the car ahead of Chris Pies, so Imperial Motorsports making a change there, and they stay in front quite considerably of Jake Gerbino, actually, with that one extra lap on that light fuel load.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out right there, as you see Jeremy Hall and Brad Dunn into the pits. Chrome Motorsports White going for a driver change as well. So Adam Gerling out, Brad Dunn in. That's going to be interesting to see how that 495 gets on, because we know how quick Brad Dunn can be, as David Boyer will stay in for the 93. As you see there, he is on pit road trying to get everything sorted.
Yeah, indeed. This is, it's not taking too long. There we go. 41 seconds, a little bit long. But Boyer back in the race, and a driver change there. Now, Julian Jones in pit lane, 27 laps on that tank there. That was very nicely done for the last 10th team. Jones gets up on the jacks, taking 4 tyres as well. No tyre restriction in this series, by the way. You can take as many as you want, and therefore you can take them at every single stop in both of these categories, and indeed drivers will do so. Even if these GT3s are running a little bit less, obviously, than they normally would with 8% fuel tank, you don't want to be running 2 stints on a set of tyres, because that would be quite tough by the end of the stint, especially in these temperatures, to still be running on the same set of tyres.
Exactly. If you can take the tires, go ahead and take it. You know, it's not like IMSA where you have the limit. You can only run a certain amount of tires for the weekend. So smart for PCA to sit there and say, you know what, you guys need these tires, get out there and run them. We'll have a driver change, as Will Wolf will get out, and we'll see who gets in. Rob Neville will be in the 0-1-0. So Wolf decides to call time on this session, and there you see, that's one thing I love about Rob, is he has that wonderful plaid backdrop and a wonderful in-car camera to see his setup.
Yeah, absolutely. Always does the same for the sim racing series as well. He's waiting. They make the driver change quite late. There's already 10 seconds had passed, so I'd worry a little bit. Oh no, that's fine. It's all been covered by the fuel and so on. Well, maybe 41 seconds is a little bit on the long side, but Ryan LeMay is comfortably out front. I speculated whether Cat 5 Racing would be ahead of the battling pair for the lead, and indeed he will be. Meantime, back out onto the racetrack for Julian Jones and Matt Quinn, who is getting up to speed here. Well, attempting to, is side by side with him 4/3. So Imperial Motorsports had come out in second place, but Matt Quinn trying to get these tyres up to temperature still can't do it, even with Jones making a later stop. He's still ahead of the Imperial Motorsports car at the moment. So Chris Pies swaps out for Matt Quinn. Suddenly they're off of the podium places here.
Big battle here for that 3rd spot, and I'm doing some quick math. If the pit stop goes right for PCA Sim Racing, Ryan LeMay could have a 5-second lead. We've got big problems. The 495 around. I believe that's Peter Coomer is also involved in that. So Dunn and Coomer with an incident there on the backside of the race course.
Oh, we've got a prototype without a front bumper there. I think that's the last 10th Foundry team. Yeah, it is. Rob Neville just out of the pit lane. He's got a meatball flag, and wow, look at that. That is a damaged 963. The pole sitters from this race are well out of contention there. Look at the face of resignation for Rob Neville. We'll have a look at a replay in a moment. PCA Sim Racing meantime come out the pit lane, and as he predicted, 5 seconds. Ryan LeMay leads. It will even grow from there actually for the leader. So Cat 5 Racing GTP now at the front.
Oh, what a rough set of circumstances for Neville. Of course, would not be surprised if the last 10th Foundry decides to use their one and only quick repair that they have. We'll find out here as it looks like that they took a tow into the pits. Now the 016 trying to hold off for position. Nice door shut there by Julian Jones as he doesn't let Matt Quinn by in that 453. And that battle rages on for the pro class. That's for second and third in pro as Jake Urbino right now sitting there in the club class, second overall once again. Ken Eskridge decides to finally come into the pits.
Well, look how much time they're losing to those top two now in this battle in GT3, and look at those who are joining from behind as well. Ed Eisenring and Ziping Wang were not previously involved in a battle for the podium, but now they certainly are. And we saw earlier how aggressive Ed Eisenring was in terms of making up these positions. Well, he's here now into this fight, and the others are going to be fearful because he will not, wait for a moment. If he sees an opportunity, he will absolutely try and take it here in this GT3 battle. So watch out here. This is going to be an exciting fight for third.
Oh, man, that's absolutely fantastic to see how close Matt Quinn is closing in on Julian Jones. By the way, they did switch at that offset. Let's see what happens with Neville's. I think that was on his own, all on his own as he just lost it. Cold tires right into the tire barriers, and that was all she wrote. Of course, behind him, that's where the real trouble began with that big impact that we saw between Brad Dunn and Peter Coomer. Dunn has not come into the pits. I don't think that any of that damage has hurt him too much. Let's see what happens with Dunn. Does he lose it on his own? No. So what happened was Coomer lost it a little bit on that exit curbing, and here's the thing: Dunn was there. What was he supposed to do? Disappear? But that just, it's just an unfortunate part of racing.
It didn't seem like Dunn was paying enough attention there to what was on his right-hand side there, and it's taking a strange line really down the straight. But maybe he would argue he got drove into that corner. But anyway, a bit of a strange one between those two, and a little bit careless. They both could have worked together to avoid that, but there you are. There's no major harm done for Brad Dunn. At least he didn't get any damage in that incident there. Well, first hour has absolutely flown by here. It's been breathless stuff in the 963s and in the GT3s. 963s now separated out a little bit more after that incident for Rob Neville, who, by the way, we got a message from our producer, less than 60 seconds on the racetrack before he was in the wall down there at the toe of the boot. That just shows how difficult cold tyres are and how hard it is for fresh drivers to get in and be on the pace immediately. It's so difficult for them.
Yeah, absolutely difficult, and you got to feel bad for Neville. We know how quick that he can be, but yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of talent you have. When those cold tires decide they want to give up the grip, they're going to, which Neville finally out of the pits, a minute 52 in pit road. Also last 10th Lovebirds, it's Lisa's turn. So Lisa Eskridge is into that car. She gets the car back from her husband, Ken.
Yeah, indeed. They were able to do the longest first stint of anyone in GTP, as he commented, and they're now back to fifth after making that stop, but they're back in the race again. Fifth position in GTP. Here is the fight for third again. It's just single filed out a little bit since we saw Eisenring and Wang catch up. These two have got their act together. Julian Jones still back in front of Matt Quinn, and that's a gain on where that last 10th car was brought in from. But Matt Quinn seems content to just sit there for the moment, even though for Imperial Motorsports they are further down than where they were before. That was a little look to the inside though. So the first signs of maybe a fight here as well, and I think Quinn will try and do this. If he feels he's being held up in this fight, then he'll certainly try and make his way past.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where it's like, okay, do you make the move? Here's the thing, if it was maybe 90 minutes later, yeah, we would see a lot more aggressive moves, but look, you're 2 hours, 4 minutes left to go in this race. There were a couple of questionable moves that I've seen, like a lot of low percentage moves. Right now, making, I think, any sort of move for position, granted, this is for the GT3 Pro class, it's still a low percentage move either way. You see Anthony James sitting there in 10th place with the side-by-side battle between he and Peter Coomer in the 05.
Yeah, Peter Coomer on the outside for turn 9. Long way round there, and Anthony James just holds him out there through the off-camber left-hander. He's able to stay in front as a result. These guys, by the way, over a minute off of Robbie Prescott, who's leading the race. Just shows you how fast he's going at the moment. So he jumps over the curves there. There's Anthony James towards the final turn. Over the start-finish line again, and yeah, holds this position now. Well, just calming down a little bit in GT3 now, certainly from the time of the huge groups that we were seeing at the beginning of the day. Single filing and splitting off into pairs further down the field now. Let's see whether there's anything to come here from Peter Coomer into the bus stop. He's in the slipstream and he's not quite close enough this time around. So yeah, it's no longer the big groups of before. It's just small battles like this one, although Coomer having another look down the inside there. Still chances for battles here all around the field.
Yeah, still plenty of time. I think this is one of those times where, you know, this is where you settle into a pace. Of course, now, ooh, that was a little close there with Coomer closing in on Anthony James for position. I'm just going to try and make a little bit of a move as he kind of squared off that exit of the corner. Now they work their way through the sole of the boot. This is the battle for 10th place overall. And it is a battle for the club class, as that's actually, I believe, going to be for second place in club right there. With Jake Urbino, he's just long gone, done and dusted so far. Urbino with an absolutely fantastic start in at number 13, R-Speed Black. That's second place, but that's actually an interesting approach that Coomer has. Oh, he's going to battle for this position here as James drops a wheel off coming on the exit of turn number 9, and they're going to be side by side. Coomer gets that position.
Gets it again for the penultimate turn. Seems like these two are so evenly matched that neither of them can break away when they're in the lead, but when they're in behind, suddenly they've got a draft and suddenly they've got a chance. Into many of these overtaking chances, and you have to cut somewhere else in the field, and there's another fight here. Quinn less willing to just sit behind Julian Jones here, and you would be if you're the Imperial Motorsports team at the moment. After all, they have lost lots of time compared to where they started from at the pit stop phase 15 minutes ago.
But here's the thing, you know, they can always catch up with a driver change and a little bit shorter pit stop, but either way, still plenty of battles left to go for this now in-class battle. Like we said, battle for second place, so it's a matter of who's going to stand on the podium. But the problem is you've got Imperial Motorsports Kingfisher with Ed Isingring sitting back there, laying in wait. You call me interested spectator, because if these two decide to scrap it out just a little bit more, that 2-car battle for the podium is going to quickly turn into a 3, maybe even 4-car battle for the podium, as the other last 10th racing GT3R sits back there, not too far away from Isingring either.
Yeah, although Isingring has been slipping further back, he isn't far away, absolutely. Here comes Quinn. Does he have a chance to the bus stop this time? He's got a good exit. Looks to the inside. It's a narrow line there. He's got to be careful. And Jones is going to let him have it, or is he? Oh, round the outside through the first part, gets him at the inside for the second, but Quinn switches back again, side to side, into the outer loop. A spectacular attempt by Matt Quinn, but it's unsuccessful in the end. He's flashing the light furiously here. He's heading down the inside into turn 6, and he can't quite get down there. A great fight through the bus stop chicane there. So respectful between the two, but so entertaining as well.
Side-by-side contact as they work their way through the toe, and that's going to be game over for Quinn as he's going to slide off, lose 2 positions as Icing Ring and Wang get around him. So Quinn thought he could make that move happen, and ultimately it was Jones just shutting the door on him.
Well, Jones will say that was a bit too late. We'll have a look down the inside and decide for us. We'll have a look at the replay, sorry, and we'll decide for ourselves. Here we go. He is from a long way back, to be fair, Quinn. He dives it in there. But to be fair, he does make the corner. I mean, it's sort of... I mean, Jones also gets a bit delayed himself, by the way. He gets slides out sideways a little bit, so that's kind of seems a bit 50-50.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I agree with that point. But at the same time, you see Quinn right there. He kind of made a late dive pass, and right at the corner, I don't think he was presented enough. So honestly, I would hate to be the race steward to have to make that call. But either way, I have a feeling that Quinn did not know. I should say that Jones did not know that he was there. So. We'll see how the stewards note that, but yeah, Julian, it's going to be quite interesting. But there's your overall leader, Ryan LeMay. He's 29 laps into this stint, and he's already got a commanding 11.4 second lead over Henson.
Oh dear me, what a lively fight that was as Ryan LeMay comes in. Oh, he's spinning and he's hit the wall hard. The race leader, Cat 5 Racing GTP, and Ryan LeMay brings it in. And he's going to be bringing a very broken Porsche 963 into pit lane. Oh my goodness. That front right wheel is absolutely toast. He has hit the wall hard there. There is a fast repair. I don't think he used it in that early stop because, as we said, I think that was a fuel mistake rather than damage. But wow, Ryan LeMay locks it up, trying to slow down for pit lane, and he smacks the wall really hard.
Well, a lot has happened here in this hour. We take a look at the replay here as the Cat 5 Racing GTP makes his way into the pits. And really, this is a very tricky pit road. And not sure what happened there. I think he locked the brakes up, and that was all she wrote.
It's the way that Armco is sort of angled as well to allow access vehicles down there just before the hairpin. Pit lane, sorry. Dear me. And... it's just the angle there that has really gave him a hard hit. And Kevin Orr gets into that car now. I mean, this front bumper bouncing down the road. Imagine that's Ryan LeMay's last lap of this race before he hands over here. It might well be. Oh dear! Eisenring and Jones now contact through the bus stop chicane. We'll get a replay on that and see what happened there in a moment. But yeah, Ryan LeMay is going to be feeling pretty poor about that. If this is his final lap of the race as a driver, that's it's going to feel a little bit unfair because he's done well other than that final mistake there right at the very end.
We've had it all in the past couple of minutes. Yeah, past 2 minutes. We've had 3 big incidents here. Let's take a look. Play. As you see Icing Ring closing in once again. Julian Jones dives to the inside as Jones taking the defensive line, heading into the bus stop to make a little bit of contact there. And I think that's what set off the agricultural experience for Jones right there.
Well, what an end to the first hour that we've had. 65 minutes complete here at Watkins Glen. Before it kicks off again, we'd like to take a moment just to thank Princess Cruises once again, who we're thrilled to have on board as the PCA Sim Racing title sponsor once again in 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. fighting continuing here at Watkins Glen. A look to the outside from Ed Eisenring. A little bit cleaner this time round through the bus stop chicane, but the lack of success, from that last move through the bus stop might just be putting him off going full 100% through there. The corners afterwards, though, absolutely he's going to go for it. Down the inside, in towards turn 6 here, side by side between the two, as Jones has to hold off another driver here through the boot section. Eisenring's going to try and shut the door here. Jones won't let him do it, and there's more contact into turn 7. Jones this time going wide, and Eisenring the one who goes off. Eisenring, for me, there was trying to shut the door, and there just wasn't the space to do it.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to shape up right there, as these past 10 minutes have had everything that we've ever wanted here. As, by the way, the track temperature kind of fluctuating here. Here's Kevin Orr coming into the pits. And yeah, that's his. He hit the barrels there, and I think that kind of doesn't help his matters much either. That's not Kevin Orr, I should say. That's Ryan LeMay who had the issue. Yeah. And here's the Eisenring battle once again. You see how they work their way around the bus stop clean, but it wasn't so clean just a couple of corners ago as they work their way through the outer loop, still nose to tail. And that's something that we mentioned, that going through the boot, heading down the 6-7 straightaway, it's it's downhill, so you really got to break yourself a little bit earlier to go through the uphill at turn number 7. And you see Eisenring just go deeper, shuts it over the defense. And of course, also you can kind of say that Jones was in the danger zone and could have backed off as well. Again, that's why I'm not a race director. I sit here, call these races, and you got to feel bad for the stewards.
Yeah, indeed. I think that one's a bit more simple. Personally, I think Ed Eisenring was trying to shut a door there that was still ajar, and he's got his fingers caught, as it were, trying to shut the door there, and he's dropped down to 6th place. So Quinn's back in front again, although, you wonder where the next battle's going to come from in GT3, because now there's gaps for Jones. Is Siping Wang going to catch up in a straight fight? I'm not 100% sure. Eisenring, though, and Quinn will certainly be looking to catch up, and I'd imagine they'll be on the back of Siping Wang before we know it in this race. But, well, first moment of calm, really, in the first 70 minutes. It's been a remarkable race so far, hasn't it? There's been GTP fights at the front of the field, including a 4-car group for the lead for some time at the beginning of the race. Led to lead some GTP drama with some crashes. Now we've not even got much of a large lead now. Chad Henson only 5.5 seconds in front of David Poyet, who last time around gained 1.4 seconds, and there's many things that could be down to. However, encouraging for Kynar Racing that they're keeping PCA Sim Racing so close.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting, the way that this all shakes down. It's about 5 seconds separating the two of them, but I'll see what happens as they work their way around. You see that the 21. I'll tell you what, Henson has had such a great race as he's been working his way. Ooh, that could have been close there. I think that was Eskridge, who right now gets put 1 lap down to the leader as they work their way around. But yeah, you got to hand it to PCA Sim Racing. This is their first race of the season, by the way, as Cat 5 Racing GTP. If they would have had no other competitors like they've had the first 2 races of the season, that pit lane incident could have been not so damaging. But then again, with PCA Sim Racing missing the first 2 rounds of the season, yeah, that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, indeed. I'll in terms of points, I think obviously we mentioned it at the start. The closest one certainly is GT3 Club. I'll try and get a little handle on who's going to be where with qualifying and current race projections as it's standing, because Jake Garbino actually in the club class for GT3 has just started to extend a bit of a lead there, really. 9 seconds in front of Julian Jones. It's because of all that fighting for 3rd place, and now looking back on the sort of last hour or so, certainly the last 45 minutes, the pass that Garbino made on pies as it was at the time to get into 2nd, and since through the pit stop phase actually get clear of all that fighting, has turned out to be, with hindsight, a very, very good call indeed, because he's been clear of all that stuff for 3rd place, and now he's nearly 10 seconds in front of it as well.
So there you go. There's the Kieran Racing Blau that sits in second place with David Boyer behind the wheel. I would imagine these two, since they've run the first couple of stints, that they would be into the pits next time, and they would get out and hand it over to their co-drivers, almost a team racing driver there. But yeah, now interesting to note that last time by it was 5 seconds separating Henson from Boyer Ewan. Now it's down to 3.5 seconds. Looking at the lap time, can't really tell why that happened, but I wonder if Boyer now starting to turn up the wick, knowing it's the end, near the end of the stint, to try and catch up to Henson and see if he can get into that lead before the next set of pit stops.
Yeah, those stops are still 15 laps or so away. The second pit stops of the day. Now, this is the battle that we said was going to be next, and it's Matt Quinn who's caught up to Ziping Wang here. Shows really that Quinn is a lot quicker than Wang at the moment, and actually seems at the time to be quicker than Julian Jones as well, although got caught up in that fight with him, so he's now significantly behind. But if Quinn can sort of quickly and efficiently make this pass for fourth place, he can start that chase sooner rather than later, and he can stay away as well from Ed Eisenring as well, because they would have had a close fight, I would imagine. There's Eisenring in the background in the blue and black. So a sense of urgency here for Quinn, really, that he needs to make this pass rather soon, but I think he will do. He's certainly favoured to get through here on Wang.
Just going to take a matter of time before Quinn closes in on Wang. He's about 0.2 of a second behind, and Wang kind of has an early entrance through the S's. That's going to hurt him down there going into the bus stop, I have a feeling, as they work their way now towards the final part of the S, and see if Wang decides to take a defensive line. Indeed, he does, because he knows Quinn will go high, wide, and handsome through the bus stop. Does Quinn have anything for Wang? No, but these two got to get this settled down, because here comes your leader overall, Jet Henson, working his way through the bus stop, and I have a feeling through the sole of the boot that he's going to try to go for the 2-for-1 special.
Traffic up behind as well. The overall lead is coming through here. Not ideal for Henson, who's hemorrhaging time to David Boyer at the moment at the front of this race. Now he'll slip through on the inside. He'll try and get both of them, and Quinn will try and follow. He's going to try and get right in behind Henson, who's very nearly touched there by the two GT3s. Quinn to the inside here, trying to get past Wang, and he's going to get some slipstream help actually from Henson as well, which is nice. Boyer might well try and take them both at the same time. Let's see whether he dives them on the way towards this corner. No, he's going to stay behind, and that will help Matt Quinn get down the inside, and Imperial Motorsports are up into fourth position. That's cost Quinn a bit more time, now nearly 6 seconds behind Julian Jones, who he was fighting with only a few minutes ago.
Yeah, you see now that Boyer's really pedaling that car around the circle. Oh, that's contact! Oh, that's some contact between lap and a car. You don't want that to happen. Let's see if there's any damage on either one of those two, but not a good situation.
It wasn't a great dive, really, from Boyer into the final turn there. It was a bit late, and it's a very high-speed corner for those, a committed corner for those GT3s. Look how late this is. And Quinn just had to get out of that at the end, and there was a small touch, but they get away with it. Quinn's run might be affected, though, as they come up towards the back straight, towards the bus stop. Is Wang close enough to make anything happen of this? It doesn't look like it. Now Ed Eisenring's going to be next in line, so Wang's going to turn attentions there. See how efficient Ed Eisenring can be here. If he can be efficient, then he can try and get onto the back of Quinn here and chase him down for fourth place as well.
Let's see if we can have some more prototypes kind of play into what's going on, as you see Neville try to go around the inside of his GT3 teammate, and not going to bring him with them. So is Wang going to sit back there and kind of play defense on Ed Eisenring and see if Eisenring can stay behind. Of course, if Eisenring gets around, it's going to be another Quinn-Eisenring battle as they work their way through the sole of the boot once again. And here's the good thing. You have Matt Quinn kind of opening up that gap, although, however, he is about 7 seconds behind the next closest pro competitor that he can pass in Julian Jones. So a lot of things here that are in play as we near the halfway point of this race. I can't believe we're near the halfway point of this race, but there's been so much going on that it's so surprised this race is just flying by.
It's felt like a sprint race, really. I suppose to a degree, endurance races are longer than 3 hours these days. It just feel like a bit of a sprint these days, 3 hours. But anyway, it has been royally entertaining. And still an hour 45 to go here tonight up the hill for these GT3 leaders. Top 5 drivers they all are. We're all but one. Here comes Ed Eisenring. Wang shaping to the inside here to try and hold on to this position. And how about this for a fight into the bus stop? Side by side behind. Eisenring round the outside is going to have to back out there. And sensibly as well, though Wang's a little bit wide. Now Eisenring going to dive to the inside of the outer loop. Shuts the door, does Wang in his face. And that means that he's able to stay in front again. And it means also that Matt Quinn is now clear of the group. So Eisenring hasn't been able to get through quickly enough to go with Matt Quinn quite as he wanted to.
That's great news for Quinn because now he has his sights set on Jones. He's closing it ever so slightly, but not enough to make a real difference on the track as these two are just battling tooth and nail. Wang and Eisenring. Eisenring now has his eyes set on that turn 8 complex, works their way around and still nose to tail. They have to wait till turn 1 to make something happen unless he tries something in turn 11. Again, that's a low percentage risk, but Eisenring's been trying as he pokes that nose to the inside, going off for turn number 9. Still nose to tail, they work their way around. Of course, with these being spec cars, they still are open setups, so Eisenring might have a car that's better set up for the later runs, whereas, you know, you see Wang in the last 10th Racing stable have a run that's good for everybody else. Here comes Eisenring to the inside. They're side by side as Wang gets a bad exit off of turn number 11 and give Eisenring that new position as he closes in to see if he can catch up again to Matt Quinn.
Yeah, top 5 again. And Eisenring up to 5th position, courtesy of that mistake from zipping Wang on that occasion, and so those positions are going to be reversed and should remain that way for a little while here. One of the GTPs goes down the inside firing, and oh, a bit close, but Eisenring just about lets him in on the way through the bus stop. Further down in the field, there's still fighting going on. Mario Gonzalez actually just had to get past Anthony James and Jeremy Hall. The last drivers on the lead lap in GT3 at the moment, so they're not too far ahead of these guys actually in the field. About a minute or so ahead of these guys on the road. And James and Hall are left fighting amongst themselves. They're both club class drivers. The Matrix Gold class driver have just got past them. Gonzalez is part of the pro field, so we just had a moment's respite, didn't we, about 10 minutes ago, where all the battles had gone away and they'd been sorted, and it's just sprung back into life again in the last 10 minutes or so.
Seems like once the closer we get to pit stops or somewhere around there, that's when things start to get a little froggy, to say the least. So we'll see how this all plays out as you see Eisenring now opening up a bigger gap to Wang, and tries to he's about 1.8 seconds behind Matt Quinn, but Quinn's also having to deal with a lapped Porsche in Leon Snyman in the number 14 Alder Creek Performance Racing GT3, working his way through turn 1. So I'm not sure if Quinn is just holding on to kind of get a good draft or what's going on, but that's just good news for Eisenring as he's trying his best to close in. Still 1.8 seconds, but actually looking at climbing the S's, that gap is getting smaller and smaller by the second.
Indeed, this is going to be awkward for Quinn. That's Leon Snowman just in front for the Alder Creek Performance Racing team. Flash of the lights, a furious flash of the lights from Quinn. It seems to have worked. Or was it Quinn earlier who was flashing the lights at Julian Jones as he was trying to get past? I think it was. So he really likes to get on the button there, try and move people out of the way. On that occasion it worked because those two are not on the same lap, but as an intimidatory tactic, it doesn't always work for people that were in your class and fighting with you, and Quinn has already found out that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we said, yes, maybe a single make class, but at the same time, with it being open setups, you know, it could be absolutely anything. As now Eisenring makes quick work of Leon Snyman. By the way, Peter Coomer comes into the pit, so 26 laps. Chris Sherburne will get into that 05 Gone Broke Racing. So Coomer with not a bad start. I mean, he had a couple of incidents, but makes his way up closer towards the front of that club class.
Just feel a little bit early. I mean, we're not yet at the halfway mark here. And you really want to be getting to that halfway stage in this race. Of those leaders who I think should be a little bit concerned about that, I think Robbie Prescott and Jake Garbino came in a little bit too early last time round. Julian Jones seemed to get it right. Certainly safe, and Matt Quinn, Ed Eisenring probably safe, but Wang will be in a little bit of danger. You know, there's a few teams here who I think do need to do a little bit of fuel saving, because I can't see a four-stop strategy working here with a splash of fuel. Generally, you want to be avoiding any splashes of fuel. If you have to come in for a full stop, fine, but if you come into fuel for such a little amount of time, then you could have saved that on the racetrack, and these teams have got to start thinking about that.
You know, here's the thing. I think Sherburne, if I'm Chris Sherburne, I'm running probably a 45 minute stint, and that should get me the final stop to the end, because you know, there was a double stint there. Yeah, no, I can see a much longer stint working out for some of these drivers, but yeah, I agree with you. Four stop is definitely not going to work for the GT3s. You know, three stop is going to be the way to go, as Anthony James comes in from 12th overall as the club class driver in Missile Motorsports. He will have to hand it off to his co-driver.
It's a factor for most of these teams that we haven't quite seen the results of yet. I talk often in these endurance races about sort of driver matchups that we see out there on the racetrack, and we can see a few different of those in the near future. And behind, Quinn, by the way, has been caught by Eisenring here, so they're nose to tail here, and they're not actually making any inroads on Julian Jones, really. So Jones looks maybe more comfy in third place, but a battle for fourth place potentially on its way here, and here those two are. Eisenring getting into the slipstream of Quinn over the top of the hill here for maybe a battle towards the bus stop chicane again for fourth position. Wasn't expecting Eisenring to be quicker here than Matt Quinn, and he's going to be let through. Quinn just lifts off a little bit on the straight and lets his Imperial Motorsports teammate go through. Maybe the fact they are teammates is exactly why those two are so amicable towards one another. But yeah, Quinn happy to let him go on that occasion.
A little bit of house cleaning here. Steve Komat's now in that Missile Motors number 210, so he made a driver change. I think we're just going to see driver changes left and right throughout the field, because there's still a lot of starting drivers who are in the cars here, whether they be in GTP or GT3. Mario Gonzalez is not one of them, as he got in from Joe Sinclair after the first pit stops. We'll see if Gonzalez hands off to Sinclair for him to end the race, or if they've got some sort of pit strategy in that 212 Matrix Gold sitting in the GT3R Pro class. But yeah, you see that Imperial Motorsports Kingfisher of Ed Eisenring, number 20. Once he was able to get around Matt Quinn, he's just opened up almost a 1 second gap between the two cars. So I have a feeling there may have been some sort of team strategy there, as Brad Dunn's in the 495.
Still early stops happening here in the GT3 class, especially. Very early stops happening, in fact, for some of those teams. There's Brad Dunn up on the jacks. Pretty sure he's been in there since the start, hasn't he? So in the last stop of the day, he's going to have to make a driver change, although there might have to be a splash very late on. That was actually, so maybe it won't be his last.
That was Gerling who was actually in the car. So this is Brad Dunn's first pit stop.
Fine. I didn't realise that was the same car. So yeah, they're fine. As I mentioned, any sort of stint of a reasonable length here, I think actually, yeah, something like half an hour or even less than half an hour of driving will be enough to satisfy the fair share rules, which are not very constraining at all. So Brad Dunn back on his way again, and rejoins, thankfully for him, just behind that GTP rather than having it crawling all over the back of him. Coming up the hill here. The lead battle in GTP had been closing between Henson and David Boyer. It had got below 3 seconds at one stage, but Henson has just turned it on a little bit again here, and he's pulling away again. And don't forget, Kainan Racing have that little bit of concern about the fuel for them as well. They've been out there for 2 laps longer than Henson has, so we'll see just how much further they can go as we approach halfway.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Boyer and the Kainan Racing Blau team going to be doing the overcut here, but with a 5-second gap, they're going to really have to turn up the wick here in the in and the out laps, which is pretty important, or hope that Henson catches lap traffic at an inopportune time. Right now, you see that number 21 skating his way through the bus stop, and he's got nothing but clear skies all the way ahead of him as they work their way around into turn 9, now through turn number 10. But it's going to take a miracle, I think, at this point for Boyer to hope for anything to happen to Henson. But this is also an out-of-class battle for the GTP classes, as PCA Sim Racing in the Pro and Kainan Racing Blau in the Club Series.
Yeah, against the last 10th Foundry team, who they've beaten 2 out of 2 so far this season. Going for 3 out of 3, and it looks like they're going to achieve that as things stand. Flash of the lights from Henson here. He's going to have to stay behind the 010 coming in. Oh, is this the Lovebirds car actually? Just in front of them, about to go a 3rd lap down here, the 012, and look at the time loss here. 2 seconds just through the bus stop chicane there, trying to get past that 963. So that was quite some time loss. But again, the traffic ebbs and flows throughout the day. And Henson, we have a meatball actually for Lisa Eskridge in that last 10th car, by the way. So maybe that's the reason why the 012 was going so slowly. But I've got to admit, I didn't see anything on that car that looked like it was showing any signs that it was had any damage, never mind a meatball.
No, that looked like a very safe car, but there might be something internally wrong with that 012. We'll see what happens when they come in. By the way, that lead that Chad Henson had now cut in half, essentially, with having to get around Eskridge. 2.8 seconds separates Henson from Boyer as we march ever so closer to driver changes here in this pit stop as we approach the halfway point. So going to be interesting to see how Boyer slices and dices his way through traffic, because Henson, normally he's pretty good around the GT3s, but it's just that one hiccup with Eskridge that cost him so much time. In fact, you take a look at the sector times, it was a 41.7 for Henson, 39.1 for Boyer, as you see Lisa Eskridge into the pits.
Yeah, indeed. Has to come into repair. I cannot see barely anything wrong with that car. The front left is slightly, the bodywork that is, slightly wrong. Up on the jacks for a tyre change, and there's the fast repair taken there anyway. It's not going to affect strategy too much, I don't think. This was, well, it's the second stop of the day. It's a little bit shorter of a stint than maybe they were hoping for, but it's not going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. I say though, cannot work out what was wrong with that car there. It was forcing it to come into the pit lane. Now we're nearly halfway through this race now, and that means it's going to be pit stop open, window open for those, especially in GT3, who are a little bit close. And Robbie Prescott is able to go to the lap that he needs to get to, so he's able to go a lap longer on fuel than he did last time. But Jake Garbino not able to, and has to come into pit lane. The club class leader still with some fuel saving to do before this race is finished.
Yeah, Garbino will have to do a driver change here. Let's see who gets in that number 13 R-Speed Black, as Garbino on the jacks waiting for the car to disappear, and indeed now it does. So Garbino is out, and into that car is, as we wait, Greg Strelzoff. So Strelzoff, he's really quick around here, so we'll see what he can do to try and get that car further up into the class. Garbina putting Strelzoff, though, in a very good position.
Absolutely. I've just done the math, by the way, on the championship. Allspeed Black with their pole and Gone Broke Racing down in third place in that qualifying session there. I have the gap now down at 12 points heading into this race. If either of them finish in the top 5, it's whoever finishes ahead of the other. And considering there's about 5 in the race, I think, of the club class today, I think they will be whoever finishes ahead of the other in that sort of situation. Out of the pit lane there for Nicky Chan as well. He's in the last 10th racing kart as Greg Strelzoff already makes his way out. Matt Siddall also does the same. Jeremy Hall passes them out on the racetrack. So, yeah, some teams still needing to think about fuel saving as they take their driver shot for the day. Robbie Prescott brings that Sole Pet Precision racing car in for a very healthy lead and a job well done in his stint.
That's absolutely fantastic. And, of course, Julian Jones probably will go for the undercut here as it was a 26-lap stint for Robbie Prescott, who gets into the 919. Their roster is so deep, and indeed the master of road racing, David Mendonca, will bring the 919 home for Solpec Precision Racing. Of course, we saw how well they did at Daytona and also at Sebring, and basically Mendonca, he's tough to beat. You really got to have to work to get around him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a strong team. I'd even put Mendonca as the stronger of the two, but Prescott did a number on the field himself. And now Mendonca has got the invitation to do the same. That's going to be a very, very difficult team to beat from this position. We go back to the battle for 6th place. Nicky Chan fresh out the pit lane, trying to get his tyres up to temperature, while Jeremy Hall is crawling all over the back of him in the Stallions GT3 RRR team. Down in 5th place in the points of the club class. They're only making their 2nd appearance of the season after missing out at Daytona. Surely they'll be very soon into the pit lane, but not this lap. They're able to at least go on for one more. Not what you want to see, though, for Chan when you're trying to get up to yourself up to speed and your tyres up to temperature as well. And he's going to be passed or at least challenged. Yeah, this is not what you want when you're coming out to a fresh stint.
No, and if I'm Chang, knowing what I know, I would just let Jeremy Hall go out there because he's going to have to pit within the next lap or so to come in for fresh rubber and to switch drivers. But, here's the thing. We know that Chang is a very smart racer, and that's why I'm kind of questioning why he's playing such hard defense and really making Jeremy Hall work for it. And it's even an out-of-class battle as well. So, by the way, Ed Eisenring now into the pits, so I'd expect Jeremy Hall to come in at any moment. And Hall lost a little bit of ground through the bus stop, so maybe there's something there with Chang coming out of the pits and having to play defense automatically.
I definitely know what you mean about Chan here, but I guess he's fearing when he gets his tyres up to temperature that he'll suddenly find himself needing to make a pass, and it would be less than ideal. But in any case, Matt Quinn comes into the pit lane, meantime, from the lead, or from the leading positions, not the lead itself. And a driver change there as well as for Ed Eisenring. So Chris Pye is back into the Imperial Motorsports Porsche, and Jonathan Waltman gets into the other Imperial Motorsports cars. So 2 driver changes there. I wonder whether Chris Pye is going to do this one stint and then get back out again after this latest one. But we'll wait and see here how long the stop's going to be. 37 seconds for Waltman, close for Pies, 3 seconds shorter. And the teammates make their way down the pit lane side by side, and Waltman only just gets out first.
I thought we were going to see more team orders there. We'll see who gets their tires up to temperature faster between the two of them, and Jeremy Hall into the pit. So that'll be race over for him as he's going to have to hand off to a new driver here in just a little bit. But look at this. Out of the pits and already racing. It's a team manager's worst nightmare as Pies looks to the inside of Waltman. They go side by side heading into the bus stop, and Pies thinks better of it, gets off the brakes just a little bit later and lets Waltman get out front. So 1 to 2 car length separates them through the outer loop. But yeah, I thought we were going to have a little bit of a spicier race coming through the bus stop for those two.
battling with the tyres there, it looked like, coming through the bus stop chicane. And they get out the other side okay. But, yeah, well, that was difficult stuff. Waltman, though, I think based on previous form in these races we see in the PCA series, I'd fancy Pies to get past him at some point. And as we've seen already, these two teams are more than willing to swap cars around if it benefits the team as a whole. But they've got to think about this because, as I say, Pies would maybe be the quicker driver, and they've got a lot of catching to do. I mean, I know there's a fair way to go in this race, but over 12 seconds to get to Greg Strelzoff, it's not going to be easy to do. So whoever it's going to be, whoever the leading Imperial car is going to be, has to be the leader very soon and get on with this chase, because very soon that 12 seconds is going to feel very difficult to catch with the amount of time remaining.
So I'm looking down my list of drivers we have not seen in the car. Teams have not switched drivers. And I take a look at Whiskey Wheels at the 981. I'm wondering what happened there, because it looks like they had to take a tow into the pits with Dave Jones behind the wheel. Might have had an issue with the 981 here. Hopefully we can find a replay, but we still have Chad Henson, David Boyer, who have yet to pit, as we go side by side for position here. And Waltman not letting Chris Pies through, so Pies going to try and see what he can do, as Julian Jones, that's the one team we're watching to finally come into the pits. But 1-2 in GTP, they still have to take their second pit stop of the race.
Yes.
I think Boyer black.
Boyer's got a black flag. Well, this can't be true. So something's going on the timing screen. The last stop for Boyer was 1 lap ago, and it was 2.4 seconds down the pit lane entirely. Now, even if you did the pit lane at full speed, breaking all the rules, you can't do it in 2.4 seconds. So I'm not sure what's gone on there. But he's got a black flag to his name anyway. 23 seconds is now the gap, as opposed to about 5. And, yeah, something has gone very, very wrong there. Meantime, for the 981 you were talking about there, we're hearing that they forgot to pit, apparently. So that's why they've had to tow back to pit lane, and it's taken them a long time to get back going again in what would be the last running car in this race. But this is a bigger mystery for Kynarm Racing, because I don't see any reasonable explanation at the moment from the timing screen that I'm looking at that would show us a reason why this has happened, and it's clearly falling apart. There's David Boyer running wide there, down the bottom of the hill at turn 8 rather.
Yeah, that's just that something's not right, because, yeah, looking at that pit lane. So on our timing screen, we have the full time down pit road and the pit stop. Yeah, 2.4 seconds. Normally we see those short times when they're flashing, but I don't think Boyer's pitted. Here's the, let's see here. Does he cross the commit line and decide not to come in? Oh no, he spins! Boyer
That's
with
why.
the spin, and he decides to go out, so he's probably got that black flag for breaking the commit line.
Yeah. Oh, he's trying to get in here, but he's at the wrong angle. Oh, that is terrible. It's like when oh no. It's exactly what Ryan LeMay did earlier, only he spins to the left rather than the right. And to be honest, it's a very good job. He's got enough fuel to go around again, isn't it? Because otherwise he would have had to tow back to pit lane. So he's had to drive around slowly, but that might be the race. That might be the race deciding moment there. So easy when you're trying to slow these cars down to such slow speed, because the pit road speed here is slower than you're going at any other point at Watkins Glen. It's one of those circuits that's sort of medium to high speed, and therefore slowing down for the pit lane is the slowest speed thing that you do. And that's not the case on every single circuit. But these prototypes especially are so hard to slow down to such a slow speed.
Of course, also, you stop and figure that part of the racing line on that final corner includes that pit commit line. And, of course, you're coming through there, picking up all sorts of speed, and then you really got to slam on your brakes. Well, also, this is one of those cars that has an electrical system. Could those have spiked just a little bit going into the pits? So that's another question to ask. But either way, yeah, I have a feeling you're right, Ewan. I think this is game over for Kieran and Racing Blau. Is Charlie Boyer in the car, and he still has to answer that black flag.
Exactly, yeah. They couldn't serve it that time round because they had the actual pit stop to worry about and the driver change. So this is going to be a very big lead for PCA Sim Racing when this is all done, although they haven't made their second pit stop of the race yet either. Here comes Nicky Chan, meantime, already on the back of Jonathan Waltman, who's barely getting himself up to speed here before he's under pressure for fifth. Chan down the inside, steaming down the inside. That's 10th Racing back into the top 5, at least the 011 is. And that's at the expense of Jonathan Waltman here. It's been a battle that had been coming, and Chan didn't waste any time getting it done.
Absolutely fantastic pass by Chan right there, as now he has his sights set on Chris Pye's 2.8 seconds right there as they work their way around. So you got last 10th ahead of Imperial Motorsports, and look who's there. It's the last 10th foundry of Rob Neville's. He's got to work his way around these two cars, so one has to wonder if Waltman's going to make it pass there. And once again, Romero with the absolute fantastic shot. You see the car sliding, bouncing everywhere, going through the bus stop. I've got to say this, Ewan, it's pure poetry in motion.
Yep, it is. It's great when we see those. I mean, to be fair, the Watkins Glen bus stop is one of the best places in the world for slow-mo shots, I would say. The way the suspension and everything is interacting through there, bouncing over the curbs and whatever. It's a great watch down there. Meantime, Charlie Boyer comes in to serve that black flag, by the way. So, is it a stop-go or is it just a drive-through here? I can't remember now. So it is a stop-go. So this is going to be so costly. Oh no, I thought it was going to be multiple seconds. He's not cleared it yet though. He's out the pit lane. Oh no, he stopped for 2 seconds. That wasn't the penalty. That has not done it. They've still not served this penalty. They're unsure as to what the penalty actually is here. I wonder if it is just a drive-through and they've not actually served the penalty that time round. And if they let this go on too long, they're going to get disqualified. They're not careful.
Yeah, they're going to have to serve that sooner rather than later as they get back on circuit. And this is just, this race is coming unraveled for the because here's the thing, now they've lost the club lead to Rob Neville in the last 10th Foundry 010. And Chad Henson in the 21 PCA Sim Racing 963, they're literally in a class all their own as they have one lap lead on everybody here as they work their way around the circuit. But yeah, man, it just goes from bad to worse to absolutely awful for the 93.
It does. We'll watch them this time around, see what happens as PCA Sim Racing come in. As you say, they're much more comfortable in the lead now. Here comes Henson and drives down all the boxes towards his pit stop. Surely this is going to be him getting out the car. If not, then he's going to have to cut this next stint short to ensure that somebody else gets a go and he can satisfy the drive time rules. Looks like Henson's going on here for PCA Sim Racing, so gonna have to be careful of that drive time. Just make sure that he doesn't overrun that here in this next stint of the race.
So I'm wondering if they're going to go in. Let's see here. We've got last 10th coming into the pits for a full service. Rob Neville's going to get out of the car, and we'll see what happens here when they go in. Charlie Boyer down the pit road as Will Wolf gets back into the 010. So both drivers. Hey, there we go. We got a satisfaction of the black flag as Charlie Boyer goes out, and hey, he gains a position too over last 10th Foundry. So 6 and 1 half dozen the other.
That's one of the weirder overtakes he's going to make this season for Charlie Boyer there. Yeah, there we go. Moves himself up to third place again. And of course, Cat 5 Racing haven't made what really is their second pit stop yet. They've still got 2 stops to go, even though those stops are a little bit out of order now. So yeah, it's going to be getting better for them in the next couple of moments. But anyway, hour 15 to go. What a pit stop cycle that was. It's now given us potentially the drivers to the end, and I've noticed something immediately here about this R-Speed Black Club Sport car. Because, or club car I should say, in third place overall right now, because Jake Gabino got off to a great start, and we saw that. Now Greg Stroll's off his driving though, and he's not as quick as those around him. He's being caught last time round. He was caught by 2 seconds by Christopher Pies. We'll see what it is this time around. It looks like it's going to be 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds again. Strelzov has just got to try and keep it on the road and keep as many positions as possible here, but clearly isn't as quick as Gerbino at the moment.
He's not. He's 2 seconds 2 seconds a lap slower. But here's the thing I'm looking at too. Strelzov is a minute ahead of Chris Sherburne and the next closest club car in Gone Broke Racing in the 05. So, while you've got Strelzov trying to come up to speed here, at the very least, he's got a decent gap to play with.
Yeah, indeed. We'll have a look at the GT3s in a little bit more detail in just a moment. But time to thank once again Princess Cruises, who we're thrilled to have on board as our 2026 PCA Sim Racing title sponsor once again. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Trefn at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles on September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or you can call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. And big thanks to them for staying aboard for 2026. And speaking of 2026, of course, Series 16 will end the year here at Porsche Club America Sim Racing, starting with the first pro race of the new season on Wednesday, August 26th at the end of the summer, and ending with the finale of the Challenge Series, round number 8 of their championship, on Thursday the 17th of December, so just a week or so before Christmas. Going to be great once again to get the regular series back underway, Jeremy, on a Wednesday and Thursday night. Always a lot of fun, the Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series in midweek. All one class, of course, either GT3 or 911s, indeed, depending on which season it is. Next season, going to be the 911 Cup car, the 992.2s, going to be making a return to PCA, and very much looking forward to those Wednesdays and Thursdays coming up in the autumn to the winter time.
Absolutely love the club series with the 4 different formats that we have. And of course, the 992.2 Cup car coming back is going to be absolutely fantastic. Look, I love the GT3Rs, but the 992.2 holds a special place in my heart, because it's a spec car. You don't have all the the downforce bits, so you can draft off somebody, and you can learn racecraft that way. It's going to be interesting to see how those cars all play out here in the next season, and I can't wait.
Well, it's going to be fantastic. Very much looking forward to it. I'll say end of August we'll be live with that one. Before then, though, another round of the Team Racing Series. The 3 hours at Road America is going to be on July 19th. That will be at same time, same place, just after midday Eastern time. Let's hope none of us are in the World Cup final, because it's on the same day. But anyway, at Road America, 3 hours that will be the next round of the championship. And I think just before the new seasons get underway, the final round at Road Atlanta. I'll just check. Oh no, it is during the season. Sorry, 20th of September for that finale at Road Atlanta as well. So still 2 more races of the Team Racing Series to come after this one as well from Watkins Glen. Thanks very much for watching, everybody along with us this afternoon. Ewan O'Leary, Jeremy Scott with you. Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras on RaceSpotTV. And here is our race leader. Solpaper Precision Racing have rather dominated here tonight. David Mendonca, who has been such a revelation in the Sim Racing Series earlier this year in 2026. Finally putting the challenge to Bryce Rodriguez in the pro class. Well, he's quite a weapon to use at the very end of this race, isn't he? The last hour and a half or so for Solpaper going to be driven by Mendonca, and he's only extending that lead now. 37 seconds they hold over the rest of the field, on their way, it looks like, to a second race victory of the season.
There's still plenty of time left, but yeah, it has that feeling to it with Mendonca opening up a huge lead over Tom Price in the pro class as well. The last 10th ITD West HRES. I'm not going to go down that road, but either way, no surprise that Mendonca just setting fast lap after fast lap. But also, here's the thing, Bryce is a club racer. Now, why is Bryce in a pro class? Well, the reason for that is his teammate is a pro driver. So you've got Julian Jones, who's a pro-rated driver here in PCA. So therefore, that number 016 is rated a pro car.
Yeah, indeed. Further back in GT3, we are about to see that fight between Strelzoff and Pais that I sort of projected might happen over the course of this stint, and it looks like it is about to here in the next couple of moments for third place. Now, for R-Speed Black, they'll really be worried about the next club team. And I think that is still the Gombrot Racing team, who are now up to second, by the way, in club, but they're still down in ninth, and they're nearly a minute behind the R-Speed Black car. However, it is just a little bit of time loss for Strelzoff at the moment, and these are the moments that are dangerous as well. When you're in fights like this, these are the moments that are dangerous. Also, when there's GTPs around, although the last 10th car is going to get through nicely. Strelzoff just got to keep his wits about him here in this fight, and ideally, I think you'd recommend that he just lets Chris Pais go.
I'm looking close at timing here, and it looks like that Strelzoff. Here's the thing, Sherburne in that 05 will have to get at least his lap back before he even thinks about closing in on Strelzoff in that number 13 R-Speed Black. So that's something to think about as well. We'll keep an eye on that the closer we get. But yeah, like you said, Strelzoff, he's a very aware driver, so I would not be surprised to see him know where these prototypes are. You see Henson now making that car one more lap down in the number 13. So of course, right behind him is Chris Pais. Yeah, I have a feeling that next opportunity, Pais is just going to get the free pass here as Strelzoff. He's not going to defend too hard, I have a feeling, because knowing he's out of class.
Yeah, exactly. You'd hope not, but let's see what happens over the top of the hill here through the back straight. Now he just pulls to the left. Pais makes it clear he wants to get past. Strelzoff just feathers on the throttle. And there goes Christopher Pais through on the inside, back in the bus stop chicane. So pass for third, and Christopher Pais on the overall podium again. He's only 3.5 seconds behind Tom Bryce though, and you just talking about him a few moments ago for last 10th. I'm going to forget about the last part. Let's just say last 10th. They're in second place at the moment, 39 seconds off the Solpeck. But that race lead, you'd say, probably gone. Can Pais get there and pass Tom Bryce here? Looks like it, because Pais is certainly closing in. Last time round, even while he was in the dirty air of somebody else, he still gained half a second.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out here as you see the battle for ninth in class right now. You have that Sinclair Sherburne battle, and that kind of has a little bit of consequence what we were talking about earlier with Strelzoff, who's lost about a second off of Pais as this battle for ninth works its way up and through the S's.
Another close fight. Chris Sherburne just in behind Joe Sinclair, up towards the bus stop chicane. Sherburne, the driver you were talking about, having to do an awful lot to get on terms with Strelzoff, who himself, by the way, is in a fight with Nicky Chan now. Here is that one coming towards the line again. And again, Strelzoff, is he going to let him through here? Well, yeah, I think he'd rather do this on the back straight towards the bus stop, to be honest, but Chan wants to get on with this. So he's putting the pressure on already. Now and there's contact between the teammates. Oh, one of them's in the wall hard. Chan's in the wall at the hand of his own teammates. Nicky Chan for last 10th Racing, served into the wall by Wu Wolf. That's unbelievable. The two teammates making contact through turn 2, and there'll be big damage on that 011 now.
We'll see a replay here as you see the lights are flashing, but at the same time, that rear axle's absolutely shot it back together again. Here's the thing, as Kevin Orr is into the pits for the 987, it is the passing car's responsibility to make a safe pass. We'll see how the stewards rule on that, but that was a dangerous place to make a pass, especially since I believe that's going to be Ken Eskridge, either Eskridge or Wolf, either one. Either way,
Wolf.
Neither of those two really had any sort of pressure from behind, so that pass maybe could have waited a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that was Wolf who was trying to get past there. I mean, Wolf is trying to catch Boyer, I suppose, but I mean, yeah, that was going to be an awkward conversation later. Here it is. I mean, to be fair, Wolf is there, and he tries to back out of it too late, and Chan makes the contact. But yeah, I agree that from Wolf's perspective, he definitely could have waited. And actually, Chan saved it initially, and then a second bump from Wolf sent him into the wall. Especially when it's your teammate, I agree with you. I think he definitely should have waited there. But to be fair, you know, he was alongside, coming towards turn 2 there. He was alongside. And meantime, he just get to third, by the way, with that stop from Kevin Orr.
Yeah, that was, he did get alongside, but at the same time, it looked like either he backed off or Chan was able to get around. Either way, it's a tough call for the stewards to make. And like I said, frankly, I don't want to be a part of it. I mean, I get why Will Wolf would want to get ahead of his teammate there, but we'll have to see that. And yeah, I definitely don't want to be in the team debrief room and having Wolf explain to Chan why he decided, well, that was a great place to put you in the wall.
Wow, what a moment that was between those two. Wolf, meantime, uninterrupted. He continues on, racing for second place effectively in this race. As I say, he's about 25 seconds behind, nearly 30 seconds behind Kainan Racing, who are leading this race and potentially on their way to a third race victory in 3 races in the club class. Further down in GT3, Chan is still going remarkably with that damage, waiting to see his next lap time really, to see how damaged he is. He's just in the final sector at the moment, but other close fights. Strozov will be caught by Waltman very soon, I think, and Chris Pies is catching up to Tom Bryce at the moment as well. No, he's catching up to Dave Mendonca though. He leads by 25 seconds. 45 seconds. There's Pies. And there just up in front is Tom Bryce as well. As you were explaining, club class driver Bryce, but in a pro entry because of his teammate, and so these positions are always awkward to be handed as a club driver when you're forced to hold on to positions down here.
It really is, and of course, you know, that's what makes this club racing absolutely fantastic, is you can hold 2 different licenses and still make your way up through the field. As you see the 987 flashing his lights, trying to get around some of these GT3s. You see gets around Chris Pies, now sets his sights on Tom Bryce. Bryce is going to have to make some sort of move as he works his way around, decides to take the low line and give Kevin Orr the chance to go high, wide, and handsome. Indeed he does. So Kevin Orr now making his appearance down through the boot and unaided by any sort of GT3s.
The GT3s will now be absolutely together in a fight. Pies has caught up. Bryce is on the defensive. How much resistance is he going to be able to put up here? Because in 15 minutes' time, as a penalty unsurprisingly comes for Will Wolf, by the way, there's a chance here that Bryce is able to hold on for the next 15 minutes, then come into the pit lane, then a driver change made because he will have satisfied his drive time by that point, and then we can see a fight for the second position straight up between those two teams as Bryce gets out of that car. We'll wait and see whether that's what they decide to do here, but I think, unlike the battles that we've seen previously in the last couple of moments where there's been a lot of people letting others through, I don't think that's going to be quite as necessary here on this occasion, as we're following Kevin Orr because he's about to get past the last 10th Foundry team, and he does, up to 3rd place with that penalty for Wolf.
Alongside the black flags too, these drivers are also earning penalty points throughout the race, so it'll be interesting to see how that all works out, especially with all of the black flags. And looking at last race out, Missile Motors had the most during the race incident points with 32, but still with a decent run throughout the field. But either way, this battle for second GT3R really heats up between Bryce and Pies. This is the deciding battle for the bottom, for the two steps on the podium that are not being decided right now by Solpec, as Pies now gets into second place, Tom Bryce in third.
Well, that wasn't as defensive as I was expecting from Tom Bryce, as we tick over 1 hour to go here from Watkins Glen tonight. Passed easily there by Chris Pies. Greg Strelzoff is next, but he's going to struggle to get on terms with Bryce because they're both club drivers. Jonathan Waltman will be the next one attempting to make a move there. Maybe Last Tenth haven't got any desires to hold on to second, and they rather just settle for third place, because, as I say, if Bryce tries to hold up Pies there for a while and he then gives it over to his teammate again to sort of fight it out in a more fair fight, if you like, in the final 45 minutes, then I think they've got a chance there in the 016, but clearly they don't agree and they're just willing to settle for third place.
Because taking a look at how much further, I think Imperial Motorsports, they are a decent bit back, but here's the thing. Price really cannot rest on his laurels, as he's got probably 10 seconds behind. There's Chad Henson, and that's one driver that's going to have to decide to come in here. He might have to short stint this stint, because he's run basically the whole race, and he's run the sands in the hourglass are running out for his satisfaction for the fair time rule.
Absolutely. That's also to worry about in the final hour of this race. 1 hour to go here in the 3 hours here at Watkins Glen in the 2026 Team Racing Series at the Porsche Club of America. We're on board with Jonathan Waltman as he is chasing down the fourth placed Greg Strelzoff in the GT3 field. We're going to let you look, listen and learn here at Watkins Glen with Jonathan Waltman with RaceSpotTV Fan Immersion. Well, on board with Jonathan Waltman as he closes in on down on Greg Stroll's off for fourth place. Not quite happening for him at the moment. We'll keep an eye on that one, of course, as that battle continues. Just less than 55 minutes to go. The final hour here at Watkins Glen in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Team Racing Series in 2026. My name's Ewan O'Leary alongside Jeremy Scott in the commentary box on RaceSpotTV with Romeo Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. And these broadcasts this season, and indeed every Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series broadcast, of course, brought to you in association with Princess Cruises, who we're delighted to have on board again in 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Trefan at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That is 833-679-2188. Well, there is the race leader, Chad Henson. Jeremy, 53 minutes to go, and he's got more than a minute's worth of a lead ahead of Kainan Racing, who might be wondering what could have been in this race, because before their issues and their multiple failures to serve penalties, a spin for David Boyer and all that sort of thing, the gap was about 5 seconds. Now it's 1:12, and Chad Henson really cruising here for PCA Sim Racing.
Yeah, he really is. And of course, like we said, now comes the question of how soon do you pit? He's got to pit sooner rather than later. And will it be a quick pit stop? Because here's the thing. The delta is about a minute 9, minute 10. He's got a minute 12 lead over Charlie Boyer. And the next question is, will the 93 have enough energy and tires to go to the end? So this is turning out to be an absolutely fantastic end to the race, because you've got rules you got to worry about, and you got to worry about pit stops as well.
Yeah, indeed, and one more set of pit stops still to come here tonight. The final stops for everybody still to be made. And in 7 minutes' time, or indeed less, if there's a bit of concern, these GT3s will be into pit lane. Still, I noticed through the last cycle there were some teams who were a little bit short of that. It was an hour and a half to go at the time. If you're a little bit short of it at that point, then you're in a bit of trouble here. It should only require 1 lap of fuel saving throughout the race from all of these teams. So, in reality, even going into the last stint, it's similar to those around them.
But I have a feeling that whenever Henson decides to come in and pit for the final time and hand the car over to his co-driver, that's when you're probably going to see a lot of the GT3s come in for their final pit stop, because that's going to be about the point where they can make it. Right now, if they were to pit, they would probably be, as you see, the time there, a minute 17 short or so long, because they can run a little bit longer. No, I'm sorry, the GTPs can run a little longer than the GT3s, but yeah, so the GTPs aside, they're going to come in and top off with some energy replenishment, maybe some new tires. It's a good place for them to go, as now Henson really has to tiptoe his way around this battle for position that's going on between our Speed Black with Greg Strolzoff and Jonathan Waltman back there.
And just behind them both, Matthew Siddall is gaining on both of them. So we'll be looking to get past both for fourth position in the next few moments. But those are 2 concerning pit stops with still 50 minutes to go. Matrix Gold and Gone Broke Racing may have to stop again. That is of real concern, and especially for Chris Sherburne, who really couldn't have gone much further on that stint there. Looks 5 minutes or so short, but can Jonathan Waltman do this before the pit stops, and will Greg Strolzoff stop him from making this pass for fourth position? You get the feeling that Strolzoff, as we've seen before, is not going to be that interested in keeping these pro drivers behind, but it could be different this close to a pit stop phase. It should only be 3 laps or so away, 4 laps or so away, so maybe this will be different here for Strolzoff. Maybe he'll want to stay in front, but it should be an easy pass towards the bus stop this time for Jonathan Waltman.
Yeah, I think if Waltman presents himself, Strolzoff's not going to fight it off too much. However, the longer that Waltman sits behind, he's going to fight it. And of course, Siddall not too far away, and that's going to be another battle for position for the bottom step of the pro podium. So that's something that Waltman has to think about. If he's going to make a move, he's got to make it really shortly. as Strelzoff decides to take the defensive line. And if he wants Waltman to pass him, he's going to make it do it on the high line and make him do it the hard way. Doesn't do it here. Let's see what happens through the inner loop, or the outer loop, I should say.
So, yeah, it is going to be a different set of circumstances now. For the first time in this stint, we're seeing Strelzoff actually trying to defend a position here, as opposed to just letting everybody through, which is really what he's been doing so far. Here comes Waltman again, coming down the hill there. A nice run coming towards the hairpin. It's a big dive, and that's where there's worry for Strelzoff. That's where the idea of letting him just go is maybe the better one, because there was a late dive through turn 7 there. If there was contact, it would have been Strelzoff sent off to the outside and maybe even into the wall.
And yeah, well, here comes Siddall, as now he closes in on this battle for position. Actually, it's going to be 4th in class right now, I should say, because I forgot Solpeck is your leader overall in GT3 and in the pro class. So both of these drivers trying to do their best to try and see if they can get up one position. But let's see what happens with Strelzoff. He decides to come into pit for his final pit stop as they work their way off of that final corner. Everybody knows the tail, and here comes Siddall. He's going to go side by side with Waltman. I guess Siddall say, look, if you're not going to make the pass, I'm going to try and do it, as he dives deep into turn 1. Both of them dive deep into 1 as they still go neck and neck, and that's going to shove off Waltman into the runoff a little bit further, but they're still side by side through the S's, and now Siddall decides to let off and go single file through the S's. Watching the correction happened earlier, probably the smart move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tight over the top of the hill through there, through turn 3, and so you've got to be very, very careful. Now down into the bus stop chicane again. Will Siddall launch from there? It's going to be too far back, so he decides to stay behind. They're all, by the way, catching Tom Bryce slowly. 2 seconds, the gap now to the last 10th car that's on the last step of the podium. So this is where the urgency for the likes of Siddall and Waltman comes in, because while it might be a bit of a more extravagant aim for Strelzoff to end up on the podium here in the pace that he's showing right now, for Waltman and Siddall, it's definitely possible if they can get past the 13 car efficiently.
That's exactly possible, but here's the thing. They've got the defense of Strelzoff there as they work their way through the sole of the boot. However, I don't think he can get any closer than Waltman is off the back of that number 13. Does he pop to the inside here in turn number 8? He's going to. That's side by side, a little bit of contact there. That's not what either driver wanted. However, Waltman's going to make it look easy, and of course, coming with him is Siddall. So now they have their sights set on Tom Bryce, who sits in 3rd, and you have to wonder if this is the point where Strelzoff decides he's going to go ahead and come into the pits behind him. He's got Nicky Chan in that 0-11.
I think he should still go for one more, but let's see here. As you say, Chan is right there now as well. Remarkably undamaged after that incident earlier is Nicky Chan. Remarkable, really, after the contact that he had through turn number 2, after his teammate Will Wolf hit him. Speaking of Will Wolf, by the way, he's on the back of Kevin Orr now. That drive-through took him behind Orr, but now he's onto the back of him, and they're coming through this battle. Goodness me. And here's the flashback for Chan as they're closing on him through turn 2 again. Side by side over the top of the hill it's going to have to be. And here comes the last 10th, 010. Will Wolf in the slipstream. He's not quite going to get through here into the bus stop, but this is a thick bit of traffic. Oh, he has to back out there. Whoa. Wolf was trying to get down the inside and Strelzoff, and you can see how nervous he is about getting involved in another lap traffic incident like that one, with the way that he just locked it all up there to avoid an incident.
You and I'm looking at the time here, and if I'm reading the rules correctly, isn't minimum drive time 25% under the fair share, or is that am I a little off there?
I was under the impression it was iRacing fair share. I'm going to recheck that. Yeah, I'll recheck it in a moment. But yeah, I was under the impression it was iRacing fair share rules. Let's recheck in a moment. Rodney Campbell into the pit lane in time for the GT3s. Adam Gurlin getting into that Sport GT3 for the final time. We've now hit the 45 minutes, and now I think the pit window will really be open for those in the GT3 class, and maybe for Strelzoff it would be a good idea right now to come into the pit lane. These GTPs have been in the window for a couple of laps longer, as they can go a bit longer on fuel, but also that means they could go a bit deeper into this stint if they want to. Into the pit lane in the background, that looked like Siddall, and was it? Yes, Matthew Siddall into pit lane for the final time today.
Of course, you also saw Kevin Orr kind of dive to the inside, too. I thought he was going to join him in the pits, but it's like, wait a second, you just came out of the pits not too long ago. So there you see Siddle come into the pits. I have a feeling he's going to double stint this round here. But, yeah, I think we're going to see a wild run down pit road here in just a little while, as several cars needed to take their third and final pit stops. It'll be interesting to see where they all run, but here's the thing, David Mendonca, he's going to stay out as long as he can with that 50-second lead over Chris Pies in the Imperial Motorsports 453.
By the way, reading the rules again, the line that I can see at the moment just says fair share rule in effect, which I presume to mean the iRacing fair share rule. Which should be just a minimum of one stint. It's the amount of drivers in your team, so 2 in every case here, and then divided by 4. So that would be whatever 90 divided by 4 is in minutes. Something like that. It's like 22 and a bit minutes or something like that. 22 and a half minutes, so that's barely half of a stint round here. I think, yeah, they're not very constraining at all. As long as in these final pit stops we see driver changes from everybody who hasn't made one so far, I think everybody's going to satisfy the rules.
All right, so I guess once again, I read the rule wrong, which no surprise by me. So we'll see when Henson comes in, which should be sooner rather than later. And Strelzoff stays out once again. Actually, he looks like he's going to come into the pits, bring Nicky Chan alongside him. So we will see what happens with Strelzoff and Chan. Is both. I think Chan still has a quicker pair. So whatever damage he may have incurred in that incident with Will Wolf, he might be able to get that fixed, as he sees Strelzoff doing the right thing and using the pit boxes as your pit through. And Chan comes in and hits his pit marks as well.
There's a bit of weaving around from Chan there. Obviously, he could have just driven through him there, but it's a little bit difficult to spot your box when you're trying to come in behind somebody else like that, and they're stopping before you. You often have to go on further than them, and it means you can't quite as easily see where you're meant to stop. But Chang does come now to a stop in the right position, and behind them David Mendonca does as well, just showing how far ahead he is ahead of these guys. That's final stop for Solpeck as well, with 42 minutes to go. How long is this stop going to be for Chan in relation to Greg Strelzoff as well? Strelzoff just about gets past him, and that's going to be a source of frustration for Chan. He's not been able to do it in the pit phase, but he wouldn't have expected to 100%. There goes Siddle. Is that him on the outside, which one around it? It's hard to see in the lighting conditions. He's gone past. Siddle's gone past them both. Siddle is up to 5th place as it is right now, but that might well be as high as 2nd or 3rd when this all shakes out here. These two who've gone on 1 lap longer have been undercut by Matt Siddle. Here comes the last 10th car of Nicky Chan to the outside of the bus stop on cold tyres. Unbelievable fighting between these two. Cold tyres, bus stop chicane. Chan trying to go around the outside, but he can't quite make it work.
Absolutely fantastic stuff as they work their way out of the outer loop. And Strelzoff, he's really not letting the 011 have any dice, as Chan trying to get ahead, and indeed he does. Right behind them, though, that's the car that's multiple laps down of Tim Taplin, the Alder Creek Performance Racing number 14. Works their way through the toe of the boot, and Strelzoff, deciding discretion is the better part of valor, gives up the position, or does he? He looks like that he's going to try and make a pass to the inside as these two cars out of class. Evers into the pits, but no dice for Strelzoff.
Well, that surely is it now. Surely Chan has got that position for good now. I'll say that tentatively, but I think it probably is true here, as he's worked so hard for that. Chan's not going to give it up very, very easily at all. Here is the battle for third again on the top of your screen. Overall, Kevin Orr versus Will Wolf at the moment. These are two drivers in different classes, but still going to have a good fight out there on the racetrack as they approach their final pit stops of the day as well, by the way. As I mentioned earlier, these GTPs can go a bit further than the GT3s on fuel, and because the GT3s are limited to 80% of their usual capacity. So they're going a bit further, and in any case we are seeing slightly different pit strategy as well from Kevin Orr in the Cat 5 racing team. So last 10th Foundry will be in first, and they'll be making a longer stop as well compared to the Cat 5 racing team, so it should go in the 987's favour, but for now they're nose to tail coming to the bus stop.
Chris Pye's now in for his pit stop, so that'll move Mendonca to the lead back in overall and in the GT3R Pro class, but still watching this battle for third in prototypes as it's Cat 5 Racing and Last 10th Foundry Pro over Club as they for the overall lead, as they're still one lap down over PCA Sim Racing, Kiernan Racing, Blau, as you see right there on the screen. So both of those teams going to have to come into the pits here shortly, PCA and Kiernan. But for the time being, Cat 5 with that very early pit stop, it looks like that overall it might help them out, but in class, not so much, because PCA has been the class of the field all race long.
Yeah, they have certainly been under threat at many times. On many occasions, they've held that position well. Jonathan Waltman into the pit lane for the final time now for Imperial Motorsports as well. Their teammates, Chris Pye's team have been in. They look like they're on their way to a second place finish. Tom Bryce still hasn't been in yet for last 10th in the 016, so still waiting for that. But Waltman on his way back out is still in front of Siddle, but is Matt Siddle going to be able to catch up and maybe even pass Waltman for a maybe final podium place towards the end here? We still don't know where Bryce is going to come out in all this either yet, so there's still some things to figure out in GT3 yet before this race is over.
A lot of questions have to be asked in all the GT3 classes, as you see Siddle having to let one of the last 10th 963s through. Doesn't let him through on the outer loop, and we'll see how he does that in the boot. And indeed, he's going to just before they work their way into the boot. So that's an interesting pass there for, not for position, but basically track position, as Jan Casilon and Leon Snyman both come into the pits for their final stops.
Yep, any stop at this time is the final scheduled one. There's not too many more of them to come yet in this race now. Yes, Siddle. 4 seconds is the gap up to Waltman, so that might be a tall order in 37 minutes, but we'll wait and see. Siddle has been very quick late on here for the Matrix Black team, and so maybe there is a chance. Third place in points at the moment after one podium and a couple of top 5s, but no podiums yet. Looks like today could be the day for that for the 55, maybe. And so it's still got to have a stop yet from Tom Bryce. He's going a long way, and Bryce is going so long now that his stop is going to be sort of less than 30 seconds, and therefore less than what these guys sort of spent in pit lane. So there is definitely a benefit to running a little bit longer in the way that 016 have planned to right from the very beginning.
Nice to see Ken Eskridge in the pits, I should say. But yeah, this has been an interesting battle that we've seen all race long, with Last 10th and Imperial kind of going neck and neck as they work their way around. And of course, back here, the Stallions GT3. We haven't talked much about them. They've had a little bit of a rough race, but Gone Broke Racing also back there in position. This is definitely for second in the club class as they work their way around. They've still got a ways to go to catch up to RSP Black, with Greg Strelzoff, your leader there, 7th overall. But man, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a huge gap to try and make up. It's going to take a monumental effort, but these two, if they keep racing like that, it's going to be even harder for them to try and see if they can piece anything away to catch up to Strelzoff.
We've gone a little bit further back in the GT3s to find a battle here between Chad Casion and Chris Sherburn, because this is important for the club championship. Gone Broke Racing are leading the championship by only 17 points at the start of the day. That's come down to 12 already with the qualifying results earlier on today. Now, can they reduce the damage here, Gone Broke Racing, on a day where it looks like they're going to lose the championship almost no matter what happens, as in lose the championship lead? He's down the inside, Sherburn, and he's on the outside, can't quite get through. Down the inside, Casion able to stay in front. Not just in front of them, by the way, is Mario Gonzalez, not in the same class as them, but also for position. So that's an added complication here. But as I say, Gone Broke Racing have got to limit the damage here this afternoon. because this is a day when they know they're going to lose the championship lead, but how big is the deficit going to be? That's what they've got to decide here.
Got wire into the pits, and of course you don't have many more opportunities to make up that time. You have Road America and Road Atlanta to close in, as now you see Sherburne deciding that it's go time, but decides to think better of it, heading into turn 8, decides to back up, tries a different approach going in, and here's Lisa Eskridge out of the pits. What happens here? I know it's very tough, but it looks like she's stuck in neutral, so let's see what happens when she gets across the line. And
but look at when she's shifting, then she gets to 4th and 5th. So how's that possible?
1, 2, and 3 are absolutely gone, because you can hear her fade. Now she's down to 3, so there must have been some sort of issue with the between the wheel and the computer. But either way, she's able to get out there. That was weird.
That was very weird there, but she gets back going again, thankfully. Haven't seen a gearbox issue like that for a while. That's unusual. Into the pit lane for, well, it was Tom Bryce. Julian Jones gets back in for the last part, though, and that is smart play from last 10th, because Julian Jones is the quicker of the drivers. Now, has Julian Jones been given a lead to defend here over the likes of Waltman? He's rolling. 31.1 seconds is long. It's longer than it should have been, because when the fueling was done, they were still changing the driver, and Jonathan Waltman goes through here. Imperial Motorsports are onto the podium, and Siddle's on his way now as well. And with cold tyres, this is going to be very difficult to hold on to now for Julian Jones, even though he's the quicker of the pairing. They've made an error in when they've made their driver change here. This should have been done earlier in the day, but they've cost themselves time leaving it so late on, and this is going to leave him really exposed now into the bus stop. He flies in here, he's sort of up to speed, but look at Siddle on the warmer tyres. He's closing in here into a 4th place position maybe.
Still plenty of track for that to happen, but yeah, I agree. We're now getting into these weird braking zones where warmer tires are really going to help you. And you see Siddle closing in ever so slightly on Jones for position. You see last time just getting bigger and bigger. And now Siddle has to go around the high side of the toe. Not going to make it happen as Jones makes him work even harder. Does he take the defensive line? Jones does, heading into the heel of the boot as you see Siddle deciding where he's going to go. And he looks like he's going to show himself to the inside. And he's going to back off a little bit harder. However, did Julian Jones get those cold tires up to temp in time? A couple of corners will be able to tell as David Boyer gets into the number 93 as he's going to come out of the pits 31 seconds in advance. And here comes the real question of, are the tires up to speed with Jones? They go through the final couple of corners. Jones and Siddle do, and Siddle's closing it ever so slightly. Does he polka does the inside of the final corner? No, he doesn't. He's going to draft off from down that front straightaway. A little wiggle there by Jones, and that could be all she wrote as Siddle goes to the inside, heading down into turn number 1. And Siddle's going to go hard on the brakes a little bit later. No, he doesn't. Oh, that would have been perfect opportunity for Siddle to make a move on Jones.
Oh, he wanted to wait for the back straight. He wanted to get this done into the bus stop. Jones is pretty much up to temperature now, although still not quite all right. And he's still got Siddle right behind him. This battle's not going to go away here. He's going to struggle to get away from Siddle here, even if he does hold on. I think Julian Jones, down the straight they come. Siddle's on the inside. He can't be letting him go. He's side by side. He's holding on the outside. There's going to be contact. That's unbelievable. How did they avoid each other there? Siddle round the outside through the second part must have been unbelievably close to contact. It was super committed. I thought the line that Jones was taking would put him straight into the side of the 55 there, but somehow they avoided contact. That was great driving, and they continue on, both of them. Unbelievable. Waltman is clear by 3 seconds now as a result of this fight, and that great pass from Siddle on Julian Jones.
I think that's a move of the race right there, because that was absolutely textbook on how you race each other clean and don't hit one another. Like you and I thought we were going to see some sort of contact between the two of them, but they came through unscathed, and man, what a pass for position. Gets them up into 4th. Now Siddle about 3.1 seconds behind Waltman as they work their way near the end of this race.
Wow, what a pass that was from Siddle on Julian Jones. But let's just circle back to the strategy, because we talked about it only briefly the time, the battle rather took over. But just explain what we mean by the mistaken strategy that last 10th, I believe, to have made here. Julian Jones' last stop was 31.1 seconds. Now, if you compare that to even the likes of Jonathan Waltman, he was able to do 29.8 seconds. Mendonca up ahead, 30.8. But the fact is, Tom Bryce went deeper into this race than all of those drivers. So therefore, he should have been able to take on less fuel. The reason why their stop was longer than theirs, even despite having to take on less fuel, is because they had to do a 30-second driver change. Now, that's literally the time of the pit stop. 1.1 seconds to actually hold escape and actually get out, and then start the driver change for 30 seconds. And that's cost them maybe 4 seconds or so. So that battle should never have been a thing. In fact, he should have been out in front of Waltman. Now, would Bryce have been able to hold on himself? Maybe not. But if you want Bryce to do only one stint, then you've got to make him do stint number 2, surely, I would have thought here, Jeremy. Get Julian Jones underway off the start, then put Bryce in for one stint, then go Jones again for the final 2 stints, because you can then have that really short stop towards the end of the race, and you're not constrained by the driver time there. That's definitely cost them 3 or 4 or 5 seconds there.
I think it has, because now you have them instead of contending for a podium, they're trying to hold off for 5th place. That, I agree that could have been the thing. But here's the thing: you've got your teammate in last 10th racing right behind him with Nicky Chan. So I think that we're going to go back to the drawing board. You've got 2 more opportunities to try and go for the championship win. But when you have someone like David Mendonca and Solpeck Racing with Robbie Prescott behind the wheel, and you already see that championship lead just slipping away, it's little mistakes like that that are going to cost you the title a little bit later on in the season. So maybe at some point you go, okay, you know what? We just have 2 races. Let's go back to the drawing board and figure this out.
The best strategic call, I think, from them in that one, unfortunately. As we look at David Mendonca, the GT3 overall leader, back here. One final time in this race here at Watkins Glen this afternoon, we'd like to thank Princess Cruises, who we're thrilled to have on board as our PCA Sim Racing title sponsor throughout 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on screen, that's pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. Well, here are the final stops of the race. Last 10th Foundry in for Rob Neville. Still yet to see Chad Henson in, as well as Kevin Orr, and David Boyer has just made his final pit stop for Kainar Racing. So here comes Rob Neville. And this will be a confidence thing for him, I think, for Neville, especially getting back in here. The cold tyres caught him out, if you remember, at the boot down there at the toe when he was doing his first stint out on the car earlier. Now to get this car up to speed, to get a good outlap in and get a good stint in, I think it'll be very much confidence boosting for Neville here.
Yeah, it really will. So we'll see how this all plays out as we work our way through the end of this race. And I'm curious to see when Henson decides he's going to come in and call time. He's run 31 laps on this stint. Of course, Kevin Orr sitting back there, 1 lap down. So Henson, he's been the class of the field with the PCA Sim Racing, and he's basically held this team throughout the race. But Henson's got to come in and change drivers. We'll see who they put in there. But either way, it's going to be a very short pit stop, as Boyer and Neville had 31-second pit stops this last time by.
Not many stops left to come now. Chad Henson's got to be in very soon. We still haven't seen him change driver, have we? Chad Henson there, so
no.
He's got, to my mind, he's got 2 minutes to do that now. I mean, he'll be running out of fuel very soon anyway. I think at the end of this lap, actually, he'll be out of fuel and he'll have to come into pit lane. But yeah, he's going to have to make a driver change here and satisfy the iRacing fair share rules. If he doesn't, then he's not going to be pulled off the racetrack mid-race, but he will be disqualified after it for not satisfying the rules. And he's in danger very soon of going over that. So let's see whether that happens here as Henson comes towards the start-finish line. He's going to go over the line again. Now he's getting very, very close in terms of this limit. Yeah, he's going to go on for one more. And yeah, he's playing with fire here, but maybe he doesn't intend to change driver at all, and he's just going to accept his disqualification at the end. I don't know.
Kevin Orr coming into the pits. Of course, if Henson does get disqualified, that would give Orr a chance to take the lead here. As you see the last 10th boundary, 0-1-0, sitting second in the club class, trying to hold on to at least some semblance of position. Granted, he's about 46 levels, about 46 seconds back to David Boyer in that number 93 here in Racing Blau Porsche, but still, a lot of questions have to be answered as Henson doing another lap. I think, well, what's the longest we've seen drivers go in GTP? Is that 34 laps? So you'd have to think that Henson would have to be coming in here shortly.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, we're on lap 96 now. This would be lap 33 of this stint. So I think this is actually abnormally long already from Henson. But in terms of a gap to the others, he's absolutely fine. As Ryan LeMay has gotten back into the Cat 5 racing car. So again, slightly longer stop than they needed to have there, but same all round here as everybody's making driver changes. Again, not strategically sound, but they're welcome to. Now into the pit lane. He might have already left it too late as far as the driver change is concerned here, Henson. Let's see whether he does intend on changing driver at all here, or whether he's just going to race this one and then get disqualified at the end anyway. He might well just decide that he's just going to end up getting disqualified. Let's see here as he draws down to the box, driving through all of the pit boxes before going up on the jacks for one final tyre change. And it doesn't look like he is going to change driver here. So he's just going to accept the penalty that comes his way at the end of today. And the reason why, I guess one of the reasons why, it's an endurance series obviously, but there is actually a slight time advantage to not changing driver as well. Because watch, this stop is going to be shorter, I think, than 30 seconds. And there you go. So that's saved him about 6 seconds or so. And so that's one of the reasonings for the rule. But anyway, Henson's on his way back out again. And it's going to be an impressive drive, but it's not going to go down in the rule book as one, and in the history books as one, because he has been the only driver for PCA Sim Racing today.
Of course, looking at the points, that would mean that Cat 5 Racing GTP going for their third straight win. They don't really have to push that hard, so that's good for them as Ryan LeMay back in the car for the number 987. Back on the racetrack, we've got Mario Gonzalez in the 212, trying to hold off Chris Sherburne in the 05. Of course, you also have one of the last 10th 963s making its way around the circuit. It could be Lisa Eskridge, who's in the last 10th Lovebirds, as I think that's most likely the case as they work their way up through the S's. And still, great racing here by Sherburne. I know that that Gone Broke Racing 05 has been involved in a couple of incidents here during this race, but either way, you gotta hand it to them, because if I'm doing my math correctly, they're third right now in the club class, several seconds behind Jack Hacion, about 28 seconds, but still a great race out of Gone Broke Racing so far.
Yeah, it's not quite that far, but it is. They are definitely in behind them in the club order, that's for sure. And it's going to be a championship lead for the R-Speed Black team. Now, Greg Strelzoff has lost quite a few places since taking over that car, but it's not the overall position that matters. It is the class position, as you say. And at the moment, Gone Broke Racing are in third, whereas the R-Speed cars in first. Stallions GT3, Chad Casion not going to be able to catch up and change that in the final 20 minutes here. So we'll just enjoy this this on-track fight for what it is, as the sun is coming down here at Watkins Glen tonight. 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit on the racetrack now. There's the temperature. This race actually starting slightly later than advertised in sim. Maybe that was the in-sim start time for the first session of the day. But anyway, 7:05 in sim now, in 2 weekends' time. It's the hottest part of the year up here at Watkins Glen, and the 6 hour in iRacing could definitely get very, very, very hot. But we haven't quite seen that tonight. It started off fairly warm, but it's only decreased since then.
It really has, and because we were what, 112, 113. Now we're 86 degrees track temperature. It's cooled off quite nicely for these tires. They're not screaming as much for mercy, but either way, this has been a great battle between the 212 and the 05 most of the race. You see Sherburne backing off just a little bit. About a car length separates the two of these cars as they work their way around and looking up and down the grid. That's actually the closest battle we have of the race. And here's the thing, Ewan, with all the issues that we have had this race, it's amazing that out of the 22 cars, we only have one car out of the race completely.
Yeah, and that Stallion's our number 7 Porsche, the Rex Jerowala driven one that you are talking about there, is, well, it was doomed from the start really, wasn't it, tonight, sadly. They did get out actually to do quite a few laps in the end. They did sort of 20 laps or so, but that's barely half an hour, 40 minutes in this race, which, yeah, not very far. And sometimes these issues just happen as well, but it's a great sign, isn't it, that they've managed to keep it so clean here tonight at Watkins Glen, at what is a very difficult racetrack, I think, for multi-class racing, but also that everyone's persisted through issues, because it's not like we've not seen any crashes, but we've just seen lots of guys coming back and persisting on after issues out there on the racetrack, which is great to see. In an endurance series, that's exactly what you need.
It really is, and it's going to be interesting to see how these how the rest of the season plays out, because you've still got this race, you still got a good portion of this race left, but you still have 2 extra challenges coming up in terms of Road America and Road Atlanta, both posing their own certain challenges up and down the season. And if you're in one of those classes where the championship protagonist is really running away from it, you don't have many opportunities to come through and make their way around.
It's multiple classes where there's the guys who've won most of the races so far are also winning again at Watkins Glen here today. As I say, next race is in 5 weeks' time at Road America on the 19th of July. That will be the penultimate race before 2 months after that, the Road Atlanta 3-hour race to round out the season. That'll be in the middle of the normal sim racing series 16 of PCA, which will be starting at the end of August. So we're not too far away from that now, just 2 months or so away from the start of a new season. So we continue to follow this fight. Gonzalez keeping Sherburne behind fairly comfortably. There's David Mendonca, and there's one of the drivers I'm referencing there, and we've been talking about all day. Saltpet Precision Racing controlling the GT3 race overall and in pro. But I've always been impressed with David Mendonca and the way he's been able to drive, but his, not a surprise. The way that Robbie Prescott was able to extend the size of the lead that he did against the competition that he did was most impressive to me. And when you hand it over to David Mendonca with a lead, then, well, good luck everyone else.
Yeah, I would say that Robbie did a fantastic job getting that lead, and basically growing it throughout, and having Mendonca not just any kind of lead, but a lead that was essentially insurmountable to really come through. Because you got Chris Pies a minute behind, and Pies is no slouch either, but when you're going up against superstar like David Mendonca, it's just absolutely tough to try and make something happen. In spite of you guys running 44s together, that's what it takes sometimes, is you really gotta ascend yourself into that next level to try and keep up to these guys like a David Mendonca. And I would say the Prescott-Mendonca duo is working out fantastically for Solpeck Precision Racing.
Yeah, not 3 out of 3 for them quite, but it's another pole to, a second place to, no, it is a pole to victory, so excuse me, second of the season. They managed that at Daytona as well. They finished second at the second race of the season last time out. Race winners were ST Racing Esports, so a one-off entry at Sebring back in March for them. Solpeck Precision Racing continue on here, the race leaders, current race leaders, and surely going on to win in 14 minutes time. Watching the sunset around here at Watkins Glen, and see from some of these camera angles, especially turn 1, I've found, the sun has come right down into the eyes of these drivers, and it probably is on the way down towards turn 8 there as well. You can see that Mendonca there would have had his work cut out, because it's in that annoying place, isn't it now, the sun, where obviously you don't want it to go away, that'd be bad news, but it's just in your eyes coming down to some of these braking zones now at this time of night, as it always does just towards the end of the 6 hour.
Yeah, and that's half the battle, too, when it comes down to the end part of the race. You've only got a couple of laps left, to say the least. 13 minutes left to go in this race. Ooh, whoever that was decided to make friends with the wall there. That was the number, let's see, you got the 919, that's a 210 of Steve Komatz with a little bit of a visit into that safer barrier off the final corner. But, yeah, you just trying to balance, how do you keep the sun out of your eyes? Of course, it's different when you're in real life in the sim. It's tough because you really can't put your hand over the sun, or else you'll block part of your screen.
Yeah, and it won't make any difference anyway. So, I'd imagine some drivers, especially in VR, have found themselves doing that in the past, and they've remembered, oh yeah, I can't actually affect the sun on the screen with my own arm. So, yeah, there you go. But no, that's not available to them. Just have to suffer through this part of the race, and because we're on a 2 times multiplier, it does go by this period of the race a little bit quicker than it otherwise would. 2 times multiplier, by the way, out on the 19th of July. In sim start time will be midday again, so be very similar conditions here as far as the daytime going away is concerned. As we go back to Gonzalez, still holding off Sherburne. I've got to say, these two are not in the same class, and I've got to say Sherburne is not looking particularly motivated to actually try and make this pass as much as it is for an overall top 10.
That's half the battle here in this the GT3 class. Granted, this is for overall position, so even if they swap positions, it's not really going to affect their standings in the class, except if you are Chris Sherburne, you'll try and catch up to Chad Casey on with what little time you have left. But these two basically run in station, and you also have a GTP right behind there as well.
Yeah, more traffic. These GTPs have had to lap each of these GT3s 8 times over the course of this race. At least the leader has, Chad Henson. That is the leader, isn't it, in the background there? Trying to see. The colours are not quite the same as what they looked like earlier. These cars just look like reflective little suns being reflected off by the sun. No, that's not the leader. It's a last 10th car. That's Lisa Eskridge, who's just making sure not to get in the middle of these guys, really. And there's the other last 10th car. So yeah, it's Lisa Eskridge just waiting, really. Being very courteous to these GT3s, actually. Just waiting, and now at a more opportune moment, coming through on one of them. Gonzalez making clear that he doesn't want them, Lisa Eskridge going down the inside of both of them at once, and Sherburne without the look that time. He just got slowed a little bit, and now here's Chad Henson, who's going to make a late move. Good job, Sherburne, saw that one coming. Always dangerous over the top of the hill there to make a move like that.
Yeah, and of course, at this point, Henson just trying to run to say that he's run the full 3 hours all by himself. So any kind of move to kind of ruin that would make life a little bit more difficult, as he's got to get around Lisa Eskridge here shortly. Dives. Oh, that almost was a race ender right there for either Henson or one of the GT3s, as he dropped a wheel off and then automatically pulled that wheel to the right. But Henson able to save it for PCA Sim Racing, as he opens up that gap to 61 seconds over David Boyer overall. Ryan LeMay still one lap down, but again, this is going to be all for naught for the 21, other than, hey, congratulations, you ran 3 hours solo.
Yeah, absolutely. Slicing and dicing here in the last 10 minutes even. And by the way, it's worth noting that gap between first and second you just mentioned there. 1 minute, 1 second. Now, I'm pretty sure before the previous stops, i.e. not the last stops, but the second to last ones in this race, pretty sure it was a minute 11 after the Boyers had served all their penalties and so on, and actually served it properly, which they eventually managed to do. So that gap effectively has come down 10 seconds or so in the last hour, which is an impressive drive. And as you say, it's not going to matter for anything for Henson here. Kainan Racing are going to be scored as the actual race winners in 9 minutes' time if this continues on. But just worth noting that they have been rather quick here late on as well, and they'll be wondering what they could have achieved had they not lost a minute serving that penalty and having that incident. David Boyer coming to the pit lane as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a little interesting to say the least. How this is, I mean, obviously we know Henson's going to be disqualified, but at the same time, one has to wonder, though, with the light field, we see it's PCA Sim Racing, if Henson was just out there to, go out there, have fun, and this was always going to be the case. But either way, you still got to applaud Henson for putting his competitors at the very least one lap down, with the exception of David Boyer, who, remember, the Boyers, they had some issues too in this race, as I believe it was David who did have that problem in an hour 38 in. He spun in the pit and exited out. So even with that black flag, to hold on to what would be a 42-second lead over Ryan LeMay, you got to hand it to the Boyers. That's an absolutely fantastic gap with their problems.
Yeah, it was David Boyer, by the way, as he came to pit lane. Solved the mystery of that 2.4 second run in pit lane, which was very confusing to us initially. Turned out he just backed his way in and then couldn't actually get in properly, but had to just go round again, and lucky that he had a lap of fuel to use and go round again. So it wasn't the end of their race, so it didn't require a tow. And still, they're going to finish ahead of their club rivals, the Last 10th Foundry team. They'll finish ahead of them for the third time this season. Today, though, the first time they didn't take pole, so there you go, losing a few points there, but they've got the big 350 for the race win, which is the important one. The gaps out there are still maintaining similar. Chris Sherburn still behind Gonzalez, although he's looking pretty uninspired at the moment. The one that's sort of nagging away is the one between Matt Siddle and Jonathan Waltman. It's 2 seconds between Imperial Motorsports and Matrix Black. I just think that's a bit too much to do with 6.5 minutes to go in. So that's the kind of gap that you need a bit of traffic interference to actually come about. There you see it visually, for it to come about before the end. And these GT3s aren't passing any traffic. Of course, they're being passed, and there's only 5 of them coming past. So I think it's unlikely, but he's keeping Waltman honest right to the very end here.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Waltman's done quite well for himself so far, working his way up to third in the GT class. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Siddle can close in here in these closing minutes. I think it's too little too late for the number 55 PR Max. Sorry, for the Max Matrix Silver Black, I should say, in the 55. Read my little name wrong there, but either way, you got to hand it to Siddle, as they were working pretty good together, he and his teammate, Justin St. John, working off of the heading towards the end of the boot. But let's see here, take a look at the lap times. Yeah, it's probably gonna be too little too late, unless Waltman has a major off here in the next couple of corners. Of course, right behind them too is not too much of a battle. You still have that battle between Gonzalez and Sherburn for 10th, as Sherburn gets around Gonzalez.
Well, he did get through. Gonzalez has got trouble. He's in pit lane, Mario Gonzalez. So now the guys who can't actually make it on fuel are starting to rear their heads here. This will be only 3 laps or 4 laps of fuel required for Mario Gonzalez. Make sure you remember to uncheck the tyres. It's a bit long, but 6.9 seconds. He's back out again. Yeah, that is a bit long on fuel, actually. Should really be only about 5 or so, but anyway, he's making absolutely sure he can make it this time. So there you go, Matrix Gold lose out to Turbin. And Joseph Evers gets another place as well, though that's a sport class team. So for Gonzalez, no actual points lost, no pro class positions lost. However, they do lose overall positions, and that's the first of our sort of guys who can't make it on fuel. Are there going to be any others here who need a splash in GT3?
That is a good question, because you're starting to see those high numbers. I think the next one that's going to need it is going to be Chris Sherburne, because he's 25 laps into the stint. Gerling may need a splash in Dash 2, but I think, Mendonca, Pies, Waltman, they might be okay as we're approaching 4 minutes left to go in this race.
I think Sherburne will need to be in again. Siddle is going to be the closest of anybody else to come in again, but I think personally he'll probably be fine. We'll wait and see here in just a moment. As the final laps of this this race wind down. Chad Henson, half a lap to go, and then 2 more. 2.5. Here's Siddle. 1.7 seconds now. It is closing again. Can he make it on fuel? Think so. He's light on fuel, absolutely, and catching Waltman. There's Henson, so 2 laps to go at the line for him. They've just come over the line, Waltman and Siddle there. They may still have 3 laps to go here.
Very, very interesting how this all plays out. And I love timed races, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, the math, I guess it scratches my itch. So we could. Now, our timing is predicting running 114 laps. I don't see how that's possible with just under 3 minutes left to go in this race, and Chad Henson has a pretty commanding lead. So it could be about let's see, across the line, we'll call that about 3 laps to go as they work their way around. But yeah, I think everything for the most part's done, dusted, and settled throughout the this race.
That, by the way, would have been a prediction from the start of the race, 114 laps. So they would have based that on qualifying, which is a very inaccurate thing to do, but they do it anyway. So there you go. 114 laps was predicted. If we could do qualifying pace all the time, evidently we cannot. So there we go. 2 laps to go for Henson. What about for Waltman and Siddle? I think it's still 2 laps to go for them at the line, which is going to potentially put Siddle in danger for fuel, but is it going to also give him the amount of time required to actually get past this number 20? You see here as Waltman comes through turn 9, 1.5 seconds. This could be one of those moments for Siddle where this race is just frustratingly too short for him by maybe a lap or 2.
Yeah, that could be the case. Let's take a look at the lap times this next time by. Siddle was a half second faster than Waltman as they cross the line, and let's see what happens here. 44.90. Yeah, I think it's gonna be game over. Waltman gonna, by the skin of his teeth, gonna get that 3rd step of the podium for the GT3 Pro class, but again, this is racing. Anything can happen here as they work their way around once again up and through the S's. You see that number 20 Waltman, and in the distance, there's Matt Siddle, not getting any bigger, not getting any smaller, but still sitting there, laying in wait should something happen to the 20.
He's really slowing down now, Siddle, though, and so that should be that. Henson has taken the white flag. He's got 1 lap to go as he starts lap 110, and Siddle is slowing down to make sure he gets lapped by him. So how many positions is this going to cost him? If he can't do any further, he's on lap 25 of his stint already, so he's pushed this quite far. I don't think Siddle can make it here. Either he's slowing down to be lapped by Henson, or he's slowing down so that he can make it on fuel another couple of laps. How many other drivers is this going to put into danger here? Because for some of these GT drivers, it looks like they've been put into situations they weren't expecting to be in. The white flag's waving, but when these guys cross the line, 3 hours will have elapsed, and they'll be forced to go round again, and I don't think Siddle's got the fuel to do it.
I think Siddle's got the fuel to deal with. There was another GT3 that was really crawling across the line. I think that was Rodney Campbell in the number 29 Matrix Silver. So Campbell may not have enough fuel to go around one full lap. And yeah, so Siddle's going to have to come around one more time. But here's David Mendonca, your leader. He's nice and comfortable with a minute 5 advantage over Chris Pies in that Imperial Motorsports number 453. Sherburne's into the pit, so he can't make it on fuel.
Well, there's going to be some big drama here late on, but out front, Chad Henson is seeing the white flag, and very soon he's going to see the checkered flag at the end of this race. Here he comes, across the line. Chad Henson wins for PCA Sim Racing, driving alone in this Team Racing Series event at Watkins Glen. That is going to disqualify him, it should do, by the end of the day. Kynarm Racing should take the overall win and the club win, while last 10th Lovebirds will also take the challenge class win there for GTP. Saltpet Precision Racing will take the win overall in GT3, and what a great drive from David Mendonca. But what is going to happen here to those who have stayed out here longer than they were expecting to in the GT3 category? Siddle is still out there. He's only got 2 seconds now in front of Julian Jones. This battle between Nicky Chan and Greg Strelzoff has also appeared on the final lap, and this is getting extremely close for the final, or on the final lap rather, for fourth position here. Couple of fights coming to the line here.
Of course, both those drivers last pitted 23 laps ago, so they have a handful of quarters to come around and finish off their battle. Of course, this is not for positions. Julian Jones with a little bit of flash there as he tries to make his way around the finish. Here on board with Nicky Chan, you see in that screen. And here comes Strelzoff deep to the inside, not going to make it happen as Nicky Chan holds off the club racing drivers. They work their way out of the boot for the final time. Right behind them is Rodney Campbell, who I'm actually a little worried about, seeing if he can make it the whole way. But Ewan, I've got to say this, it's going to be quite interesting to watch these two come around the final couple of quarters. Chan has him at bay. Here comes Strelzoff to the inside. Chan shuts the front door on him. Too little, too late. Nicky Chan's going to get ahead.
It's not over. It's not over. Chan's run out. Chan's run out.
Chan slows down.
He's run out. It's not quite enough. Is it? Yes, it is enough. Strelzoff gets there just in the end. Strelzoff gets there to 6th place. In the end, there was a similar thing happening up front, by the way, between Siddle and Jones. Matt Siddle seemed to have run out on the way to the line there as well, and he just about made it, only just though, in front of Julian Jones. Strelzoff did have enough time to get over Nicky Chan there. We run on board there for just a moment. Chan was lifting off all the way, and Strelzoff does indeed get past him on that run to the line by 33 thousandths. Chan just a few 2 meters short. Here's the replay. By this point, he's coughing to the line, and Strelzoff recognises that early enough, thankfully, so he doesn't run straight into the back of him. He pulls out to the right, and there's just enough racetrack for him to get past.
That was an absolutely fantastic play by Strelzoff as he gets ahead of Chan by 0.033 seconds. And, of course, that's for overall, but, man, what a finish to the race.
Yeah, fantastic finish. Chad Henson takes the victory on the road in front of Kynarm Racing, who may well be scored with the win at the end of the day. Cat 5 Racing, therefore, with the pro win as well. Then last 10th Foundry ahead of last 10th at Lovebirds, the only challenge GTP. They should get that victory there as a result. In GT3, David Mendonca brings the Saltpet Precision Racing car over the line for an overall win there by over a minute in the end in front of Imperial Motorsports, who double up on the podiums. Jonathan Watman getting away from Matt Siddle in the end there, who only just held off on Julian Jones. Greg Strelzoff gets the club win, but his pass on Nicky Chan on the last lap was just as exciting. Rodney Campbell just got to the end there in 8th place, as Chad Casey on, with Joe Evers, the sport class winner there for the motorsports team. Chris Sherburne had to pit late on there, so did Mario Gonzalez there, 11th and 12th, ahead of Steve Cometz and Adam Gerling. Leon Sneman got ahead of Patrick Aguirre to win in the challenge class for the GT3s today. Rex Jalawala was the only retirement throughout the entirety of the field. Let's have a quick chat to some of these drivers, shall we? Starting with the guys who are going to eventually be scored, the winners, Charlie and David Boyer, who join us now. Welcome in both. Congratulations on what's going to turn out to be a race victory for you both here this afternoon. David, we'll start with you as you cross the line there towards the end. Just What were those final few laps like as you were just bringing the car home nice and safely there?
On the one hand, we were trying to bring it home nice and safe, but in the other, we felt like we were in a bit of a battle for the fastest lap. So I was pretty happy that finally the traffic cleared up and I was able to put in a pretty quick time at the end there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charlie, you were watching on and obviously sharing the car here today. Just what was that race like early on now, I want to know, because early in this race we had 4 for the lead in GTP for quite some time, and it was quite a fight at the front. What was that like to be a part of as well?
Well, it was fun. I mean, it was a battle. When I turned the car over to Dave, I was somewhat relieved because it was pretty stressful, especially weaving through traffic. But I knew that we had the pace, and if we just kept clean and out of trouble, that we'd be fine. So it worked out.
Well, congratulations to you both on the race victory here today at Watkins Glen eventually, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thanks very much, David and Charlie Boyer, the winners overall here tonight. In the GT3s, we haven't got the Solpec guys down there just yet. We have got Strezlov and Gerbino, though, from the club victory, so we'll bring them in from GT3 now. Greg, Jake, welcome in both. Good to have you with us. Want to chat to you, Greg, first of all, about that late fight there. I know it didn't matter for your class win in the end, which was already secure, but how about that run to the line there to take another overall place? What was that like?
Oh, it's so great. It's such an honor because he's such a great driver. I was wondering why I was catching him so much, and then I figured out that he must be so low on fuel. I had a couple of moves that I tried, but I didn't want to take any risks with so close to go. I didn't want to get a penalty for either of us. So I don't even know what the margin was, but I know it was super close, but it was such a blast. What a great race. I haven't driven since Daytona, which feels like a year ago. So I had a lot of rust, but Jake did such a great job on the opening stint to give me such a huge margin that I just had to keep it on the track for us to win.
And Jake, let's talk about that opening stint, because you were really fighting with the big guys out front, the pro guys at the front of the field here in the first part of this race. Second place, I think you handed the car over in, or at least you were running there at one stage. What were those opening laps like, and how did you understand, I guess, how vital those laps would turn out to be later on while you were in the car at the time as well in that first half of the race?
Yeah, it was fantastic to be fighting with those guys up front. Just tried to keep it really clean, but also be opportunistic early on in the race. So I knew we needed to build a bit of margin, and was able to keep pace with them. I know Chris Pies and I were really nose to tail for essentially the full duration of the first stint. So that was a lot of fun, and always great racing with that group of guys. And thanks again to Greg. He did a great job bringing it home, and what a photo finish there. Really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Congratulations both on the club class win tonight, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Great. Thanks, Ewan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Great job, everybody.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. That is Jake Gerbino and Greg Strezlov, the club class victors here in GT3 today. Now, they're both ready, David Mendonca and Robbie Prescott, the Solpec Precision Racing drivers who have taken overall victory in GT3 here today. David, Robbie, welcome in both. Good to have you with us. I'll start with you, Robbie, first of all. You started the car and you handed over in quite a big lead. Just was this a race you were particularly confident about, sort of racing away like that? Because, you know, with all respect to you, I didn't find it surprising you were in the lead. I did find the gap that you handed over with surprising, though. Was that sort of expected from you tonight, or were you surprised by your own performance as well?
I think a little bit of both. I really haven't put much time on the sim lately, just with summer and life and my training outside of the iRacing. But I think as soon as I saw I put on pole by like half a second or something like that, I knew I could just pull away from everybody. So if I could just keep the car clean, then hand it off to David, and he brings us home with a nice, easy victory.
Yeah, David, the gap in the end just over a minute. How is it to sort of, how does it feel to be handed the car in that position and then able to extend that further in such a comfortable win? Give us a sense of what that feels like for the final 90 minutes as you experienced today.
It was honestly pretty stressful because you have time for your mind to wander and think about things, and all I could think about is Robbie did such a good job, and don't put this thing in the wall before the end of the race. Where if you're in the mix of things, you're not really thinking about stuff like that. So, but in the end, it wasn't too bad.
All right, thanks for chatting to us both. Congratulations on such a dominant win here today, and I'm sure we'll see you again at the next round in a few weeks' time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Gotta give a shout out to the Soulpack boys and the sponsors of Bruzy and Codsworth. Those guys make it happen, so appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Robbie Prescott, David Mendonca, the winners today in GT3 overall, and indeed in Pro as well. A couple of quick ones before we go as well. Joe Evers was able to take the car over the line for the sport class here today in the 83 Motorsports car. Joe, welcome in. Good to have you with us. A 10th place finish overall, which it was a couple of places gained at the very late stages there, but it's not what overall is important. It's the sport class victory for yourself today. How was that final run to the end for you?
It was great. I think Sheldon and I just kept it clean and tried to keep a good pace the whole race, and Sheldon did a great job of saving a little bit of fuel. I think that's why we gained those couple places at the end, so it was great.
Gosh, I should have dragged Sheldon in at the same time as you. Sorry, splitting apart the teammates. Sorry, Sheldon as well. Welcome in. How was that earlier part of the race for you down in the sport class here for you today? Right in the midfield where a lot of the action was early on, it seemed to me anyway. What was it like to be in at that part of the field?
Well, it was a great time. It was a little hairy at places, especially when the really fast cars are coming past us in groups of three and trying to weave their way in and out. It was a little bit of a challenge, but otherwise it was great to be in there and a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations to you both on taking the class victory in sport in GT3 today, and thanks both for coming to chat to us at the end as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. That is Sheldon Zaharchuk and Joe Evers there, the sport class winners. In the GTP category, we've got Ken and Lisa Eskridge here from the Challenge class in GTP here today. Welcome in both. Good to have you with us. Start with you, Lisa. You brought the car over the line in the end here today. How was it out there at Watkins Glen in that GTP today?
Well, our goal is always 0x, and I didn't hold up my end of the marital commitment this time. I unfortunately was a little bit of ball and chain for my dear husband, but we did it.
Absolutely, and Ken, what about your side of this one? How was it in this race today? Watkins Glen, a challenging one, it seems to me. I would say the most challenging so far this season. What did you make of it today?
Yeah, it's a little more difficult being with all the turns and tight racing there is here with the two classes. But we started out, we hated the GTPs because they were so fast and weren't really not used to those since we never run them that much. But we're growing to love them, so hopefully we'll do better.
Well, congratulations to you both on getting to the end cleanly here through Watkins Glen today, and thanks for coming for a quick word after the race as well.
Thank you too.
Thanks very much. That is Ken and Lisa Eskridge, part of the Last 10th Lovebirds team, who were in the GTP Challenge class here today. And finally, in GT3 Challenge, time to have a chat with Tim Taplin as well, who is part of the Alder Creek Performance Racing team who've won in the Challenge class here at Watkins Glen today as well. Tim, congratulations on a class victory. How was that race out there in GT3 down in the Challenge class? In the lower classes like Challenge and Sport, it's always a case of sort of being in the midfield, it seems to me, and that seemed to be very lively today. How was it out there on the racetrack?
We had a lot of traffic. It's impressive to see how fast some of the pro class drivers are in the GT3s, and then just every few laps having those guys coming by in the GTP cars. We had a pretty clean race and ran solid times for what our pace is, and that's pretty much the goal we had for the day.
And it must be pleasing as well. I know you've not been at every round this season as a team, but in the two that you have, you've been able to beat the Chroma Motorsports Black team to a race victory. It must be very pleasing in the two rounds that you've been able to do that so far.
It's been good, yeah. Like I said, just going for clean, solid races. That's what endurance racing is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on achieving that and a Challenge class victory today, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tim Taplin, the challenge class driver for Alder Creek Performance Racing down there in GT3. A lot of winners, a lot of great performances, Jeremy, and hopefully there'll be a few more of them in 5 weeks' time when we come to Road America for another 3-hour race.
And Road America is always a wild card because of the long straights and 4 miles in length that should prove a challenge for the Team Racing Series as we march ever so closer to the end of the Team Racing Series season.
Absolutely, just 2 rounds to go after this one today. We are on the home stretch, as it were. 3 hours at Road America, followed by 3 hours at Road Atlanta coming in September to mark out the rest of this season. We'll be live on RaceSpotTV in 5 weeks' time on July 19th. With the final race of the season. So I hope that you can join us then. For now, I've been Ewan Leary alongside Jeremy Scott with Miro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras of this RaceSpot TV broadcast tonight. Until we see you again in 5 weeks' time at Road America, it's goodbye for now.
Some trips are felt beyond words. No one connects you to Alaska like Princess. Princess Cruises. Book now.